everybody. Welcome back to the Project Manga Podcast, where we cover One Piece, My Hero, Black Clover, Mashle, Dr. Stone, and Jujutsu Kaisen week to week. Back this week covering Weekly Shonen Jump issue number 27. I'm your host, Eagle.
I'm Knox.
And I'm Nickums.
And we are joined tonight for the very first time by a special guest, Aniki Smash. What's up, man?
Hey, what's
Thanks
up?
for
It's nice to be here.
Yes.
Awesome. And it's not often that we get to have people on the show, obviously, because it's hard to find people to talk about them with, you know, all the things that we cover on the main roster here. So real quick, for anybody that's not too familiar with you or any of our audience that might not be, tell them about what you are and what you do, man.
I do mostly My Hero Academia content, host of the Church of MHA podcast, dropped the My History Academia series detailing like Japanese war crimes and human experimentation, all that good stuff, and how it ties into the plots of My Hero. Bonus information on cults in Japan and how that, just a lot of deep dives into like Japanese history and like how that ties in real life science, that kind of whole jazz really tied all together. Antichrist Shigaraki video, works.
Oh yeah. And of course, we'll put links down in the description for anywhere you can find Aniki and the stuff that he does. So with all that said, as always, take a look down in that description box for where you can find links to our individual social media accounts like Twitter, online communities such as Discord, places where you can listen to the podcast wherever you like to, and also ways to support the podcast through our online shop or our Patreon. Also, like the video.
Yeah.
And with all that said, man, what a fire weekend jump, man.
Holy shit.
Yeah.
Yes.
Full roster. Massive My
Full
Hero
roster.
Academia chapters. Luckily, we have Aniki Smash here to help us out with that conversation. I'm so excited for that.
Yes.
I want this JJK chapter.
Yes.
Okay, look.
Yes.
Should we just jump into it? Should we just jump into it?
Let's just
Yeah.
jump right into it, man.
Okay.
Chapter 151 of Jujutsu Kaisen, Perfect Preparation, Part 4.
Yes.
Man,
Aniki.
we start off with the Naoya flashback, man.
Yeah. Okay. So this
Aniki.
was Naoya, because this kind of confused me. Like at first, obviously it's Naoya as you continue
Yeah.
to, but I thought that they were kind of trying to focus on that dude Ranta at first. Like when I first opened up the page, because he was getting fan art and shit. You know what I mean? Like motherfuckers.
The eye guy?
Yeah, the dude with the
Yeah.
eyes and shit. He was kind of popular after last chapter or whatever. So I was like, oh shit,
Look at my
Ranta
hair.
chapter. No, yeah, that's fucking Naoya's
Ranta,
bitch
yeah.
ass. But yeah,
No,
Aniki, you wanted to jump into it. Get in that bag,
Because-
buddy.
Like, my thing is that I thought something was a little odd in how Naobito negotiated with Toji, right? Like, I was like, it's kind of weird that he would be like, yeah, Toji, straight up 10 million, bet. Oh, head of the clan, bet.
Yeah.
Like, these are weird deals that Naobito made with Toji.
Yeah, for real.
And so it's like, when I look at how Naobito, and then especially what we see here in this chapter with Naoya, it's like those two, it's like they respected Toji, but like in the process, like their respect for Toji was in such a heavy contradiction with how they lived. They just like couldn't help but living like this extremely like hypocritical and like frustration
Right.
like with it all. But it's like because like neither one of them really was going to be in a position to change the Jutsu society. Like this ZNA clan just wasn't that powerful.
Right.
But like, so it's like it's kind of weird to think that like their power felt like they almost were never going to be like relevant. But it's also like worth noting that Toji in the eyes of Naoya is on the same level of Gojo. Like that's still like a thing. And I'm like this Toji like respect that's been happening lately is a huge fan of it.
Yeah, me too. Because Toji's like my favorite fucking character that's been introduced
Yeah.
in the series. You know what I mean? And to see him come and kind of go so quickly in the hidden inventory flashback, you're kind of like, okay, he played his part, but like I kind of wish I could see more of that guy. And then all of a sudden, Shibuya incident comes and he comes back, in the way that he does. And it's, in my opinion, as far as revivals go, one of the better revivals that I've seen, especially in shonen storytelling. So then you're like, okay, now this is an even bigger character than it was before. Not only are you the guy that killed Gojo Satoru, but you're also the guy that like came back and fucked shit up in Shibuya incident. And it wasn't like really all that awkward or cringy like revivals usually are. So now you have even more reason to put this character up on a pedestal. And then since then, he's been getting more and more feats and more respect posthumously, like, you know, after his second death, even in the storytelling, he just keeps being amped up.
Like,
you know what I mean?
Okay, like with as detailed as Giga is with his like a combat system, this almost feels like he makes it a point to be like, you do understand that Toji has feats, bro, right?
Yeah, right. Yeah, and it's such a cool
Yeah.
vehicle for his strength because everything is tied to that cursed energy. And then when you completely take that cursed energy away from someone, the less you have, the stronger your body, or the stronger like you are really. Like this is like the strongest solo character that like we've kind of almost seen in the entire, like you have like Gojo, you have Yuta, you have Toji, and then you have, you know, the special grades, you know, that we haven't really, the others, Yuki, who we haven't really seen too much from, and then obviously Geto, you know what I mean, who we saw a lot from, you know, as a teenager, and obviously he's Kenjaku now with all of these other abilities and all of this other stuff. But when it comes down to just raw who these characters are, Toji's like top 3. You know what I mean? Like in living in the verse, you know what I mean? So,
and there's something that I really want to point out here is that you realize, like, to a certain degree, Naoya built his fighting style around Toji.
ooh,
Yep.
Because, like, you think about it, like, he focused on maximizing his martial arts. Like, and when he fought with Maki here, he doesn't fight Maki and, like, pull the, like, sneak knife attack like he did with Choso.
Right.
None of that. He relies solely on hands, and he's, like, thinking about Toji the entire time. This dude who was a beast because he could straight up box you.
yeah,
Sure.
And, like, when you think about, like, that resentment towards cursed tools, it's like Toji didn't use cursed tools because he was reliant on them. Like, he used cursed tools because, you know, like, that was like just a way to fight sorcerers. Like, it's just like about who his enemy was. Like, he was going to use the proper weapon for it.
right. And even here now, is like strength is weight and speed, so he can take advantage of the speed boost that he gets from his curse technique to maximize the force of his blows, which is also like Toji, because that motherfucker's just so fast. You know what I mean? That he can just fucking steal off you with the force of a fucking projection sorcerer. You know what I mean?
Right.
So that's pretty tough.
I love that point you made, Aniki, though, because like when Naoya is facing Maki here, right? He's fighting Toji. You know what I mean? He wants to consider himself on the level of Toji and Gojo. So when he's fighting Maki, he doesn't want to do a sneak attack. He doesn't want to do a hidden blade. He wants to beat Maki on Toji's terms, right? I love that. That's a fantastic point, I think, for this battle. Yeah.
Like, and that's the thing that I don't think Naoya's dead here. I think this is now going to open the doorway for his character to actually like grow, because while I think Maki definitely tried to kill him here, I think just he's a strong enough power level where he's going to take some damage, but he might lose some teeth, but you know, he's going to be back on his feet.
At least some teeth, boy. Shit.
Yes, but that's going to help them have the political power they're going to need to change the Jujutsu world going forward.
Yeah.
Right.
So I think that's the point in like keeping Naoya around. Plus, because of his reverence for Toji, that can now translate to Maki, and that respect can be built. Because that's what was missing, you know, like that, like legitimate cause, like that, like, yes, this is the reason why I can respect you and your power.
Right.
So, like, he's a supreme first grade sorcerer. So she beat him with one blow. He has to acknowledge her, like, all right, you're like a first grade. And that's what the Shibuya incident partially was from them, if you remember, like that first grade promotion exam.
I think they're going to call Maki fucking special grade threat after something like this. You know what I mean? Yeah. It's like when you, and I just want to comment about how beautiful it is that Maki is the one that's killing the Zenin clan, because it literally just like scratches like that satisfying itch in all of the areas that we've like hated the Zenin clan. One, they're misogynistic. One of your daughters just scraped all of you. Okay. Right. Two, you have like this culmination inside of you have this culmination of all of these kind of like plot points related to the Zenin like coming, you know, to a head here in regard to, one, you're a female and you just whooped us. Two, you don't even have curse energy, and we value that above like anything, to the point where it's like noble versus peasant, you know, like magic, like Black Clover stuff. You know what I mean? Like you don't have any of this. Go fuck yourself for that reason too. And it's like, okay, so a woman with no cursed energy just beat the brakes off of all of y'all, and then you have this you have this character of Naoya who kind of embodies all of that misogyny and like all of that like shitty, you know, everything that we don't like about the Zenin clan. And inside of his dialogue, we kind of see the lowest parts of the clan, like as far as as far as all that stuff, and then for her to just crush his face into the ground. I'm pretty sure like in his dialogue, he's like, you got to have a good face if you're going to be a girl in this world or something like that. Talking about like how like all women are good for is just being something to look at or whatever in the Zenin clan, and it's like, well, now you're ugly as fuck, bro, because you're out here with a Bellamy-sized dent in the side of your fucking face.
One Piece was so good this week too.
Yes, it was. Yes, it was. Absolutely. I just love how it's like it's all so satisfying how it all happens, all at once kind of inside of it.
In terms of the misogyny aspect, right? I feel like at a meta level, when's the last time have we seen a guy and a girl fighting this brutally, right?
Mm-hmm.
Usually it's two ladies fighting, or obviously two dudes, a lot of dudes fighting in Shonen, but like to have Maki fighting Naoya, and Naoya is not holding back at all, and this is a very brutal fight. I thought it was just fantastic for like that gender equality. You know what I mean?
That is a very good point. This is a bare knuckle brawl. You don't really see that too often in like a very bloody, no holds bar. And
he starts the shit off.
Yeah.
Throwing her around
the fucking panel and kicked her ass through a whole mountain. Like,
yeah. Okay, so page 16 and 17 on the Viz site slaps her in the shoulder. When the palm of a combatant activating projection sorcery touches an opponent, the opponent must also move at 24 frames per second. Failure means 1 second of freezing. We already know this because of Naobito exposition in the Shibuya incident. But I think it's cool how she's counting throughout this fight because she wants to understand the projection, sorcery conditions and caveats and things like that. But it was always so confusing to me how she's like, okay, you just have to move 24 times. Or whatever in a second. And it's like, I'm trying to picture how you come to this conclusion physically, because like, this is a very high concept technique. You know what I mean? Like this is like something that is very hard to kind of fathom in our physical, like realm that we occupy, you know what I mean? So like the fact that she's sitting here after taking the attack and turning that very like video game, like Magic the Gathering kind of flavor text explanation for this ability and reacting to it physically in a way that follows the rules of the technique was very mind-blowing to me. I was like, how? I thought this technique was like perfect because it's like, if it touches you, what the fuck can you really do about that? Even if you know how the ability works, how can you
just be like
I'm just like how do you figure it out and counter it with just experiencing it and knowing the explanation of such a high concept ability, what I mean?
And that's what she's doing, right? If you go to 18, she literally says, you make 24 movements per second with this body. I can finally see that. So with the Toji level senses, the eyes, the ears, everything, right? Like she literally can see that much detail that she can actually unravel the technique in like live, you know what I mean? Like just looking at it.
And that's tight.
Huge feat.
It is huge.
That is a huge feat.
And that's tight that she like with the increased strength of the heavenly restriction being fully realized, she's able to see that visually. But I'm pretty sure there is like a part of the explanation of the ability that says Naobito or the user projects your next 24 frames of movement and predicts them. So you have to not just move 24 movements per second. You have to follow the exact trajectory that the projection sorcery predicts for you, right? Wasn't that in
back in the Dagon fight?
Yeah, because they said if you violate it, that's part of how you get paneled.
Right, exactly. Sure. So it's like, how do you? I mean, like you being able to see the shit is all fine to me. My whole thing is like, okay, now that you've been touched and you have to move 24 times in a second. How do you then know which way to move in order to not get stuck in the panel? Yeah. That was the only thing that really confused me about this chapter. And I mean, I've always been confused when it comes to the projection sorcery in Jujutsu Kaisen in general. So
my theory on this one is going to be that the projection sorcery like has like a probability effect to it, where it's not necessarily like you have to move this exact way, but if you're going to do something different, you still need to move at this like frame rate and like pattern if you want to not get stuck.
Sure.
So it's like you have to just match the timing, not necessarily the path.
Maybe you also
Right.
have to like factor in like the momentum you already have. And I mean, she was pretty much like stationary when you
Yeah,
tapped her. But
right.
I would assume that if you're already kind of like leaning on your left foot to take a step to the left and you get tapped, you have to continue finishing that step maybe, and like the technique checks for things like that. I'm not sure,
Right.
but that like these are things that I like am constantly thinking about whenever Naoya and Naobito are like mentioned, because it's like this is the
Right.
most confusing ability in this manga.
By the
to
way,
me.
do you want my crack theory for why this technique came into existence?
Yeah, I want all that.
Because so in the same way that like curses are like manifestations of people's resentment, I was thinking about how people specifically would have resented the companies that founded like animation studios, because there's always all this hatred towards the next big thing, and so you've had all like, oh, like it's just a cartoon, blah blah blah, it's a waste of time, like so all that resentment towards. That's why it's like 24 frames, because like that's when the curse would have finally like manifested at a time where it's like it's not the craziest graphics yet, but like the curse started like finally forming.
Sure.
And so in turn, like a curse technique finally manifested, like that reflected like one of the curses coming into existence.
I like that.
That's how I look at it.
Yeah.
That's
I like
cool
that,
to
yeah.
think about.
Getting back a little bit to the your confusion, Knox, so over
Yeah,
the ability,
sure.
right? I think
Yeah.
another piece of the puzzle is on page 11, right? And now I totally remember what you're talking about from back in the Dagon fight, when I think Naobito or maybe the narration was saying like there's a trajectory, like the ability kind of like tracks out their future path, and like you
Right.
kind of have to match it.
Yeah.
But I wonder if like it's always possible, right? Those things are like mistranslations, right?
Sure.
And I'm not saying it was a mistranslation, but
And we had
this-
Stefan
on page
Kozan
11
translations back then. I'm pretty sure
Right,
he was
right.
out of here for reasons we all know about. But yeah,
Right. But on page 11, and this is something that was also said back then, this first square box, right? Projection sorcery does not allow movement in ways that egregiously ignore the laws of physics and trajectories.
Right.
So I think that might play into it, right? Where like Maki can do whatever she
Oh,
wants
yeah.
as long as it's in 24 frames per second, but she can't do anything too egregious,
Yeah.
right? And that's when you're saying like, okay, she's squatting, she's about to take a step with her left leg, right?
Mhm.
Gets tapped. She's already in that trajectory, in that,
Right.
for physics, right? So
Right.
she, maybe her body could jump like to the right, say, like
Right.
really well, based on just how physically adept she is.
Yeah.
But that's like kind of too much breaking the laws of physics and trajectory.
Right.
So that would be a penalty.
Sure.
So I think it might be that, right? As long as she's moving somewhat reasonably,
yeah.
that might be the condition.
So
yeah.
I guess we can like kind of like, if taking that point, we can kind of go back to that exposition that we got in Shibuya about how the sorcerer, I think the way that it was worded is that the sorcerer who's casting the projection technique, it said that they predict your next, trajectory or whatever. Maybe
Mhm.
it's just because of how well the sorcerers understand physics and trajectory that like that's their assumption based on the way that you're already moving or whatever
Right.
kind of like high level calculations a projection sorcerer needs to make about kinetic movement in the middle of a fight in general. You know
Mhm.
what I mean? So like it could be something to where it's like, okay, based on what I understand about physics and trajectory, you're already kind of moving this way. So that is my predicted path. You have to follow that, not just because it's my will, but because it's just the will of physics and trajectory. And as far
Sure.
as my assumption of it in this
Sure.
moment.
And I might be wrong. My
Yeah.
planned trajectory might be, maybe it's not exactly what you're going to do, but
Right.
it's somewhere in that ballpark.
Yeah.
Exactly. What were you going to
No,
say?
no,
what are you trying to
Maybe,
get at?
Yeah, you were trying to
maybe
get
in
in there?
this case, Naoya, is assuming that she won't make it and she'll get the penalty and not be able to move.
Yeah.
And so she can't move and she just has to like flex different muscles like 24
Yes,
times
yes.
in that 1 second.
Yeah. I like that. I thought the same thing for sure. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I don't know.
Yeah, because there's there's a couple different ways that ultimately, like, as long as because if you're just trying to dodge, then even though if you're taking like that small step, if you're not trying to dodge in like major ways, then that projection is going to be a lot less accurate just based on the fact that you aren't combating your own kinetic energy as much as like he would be because of the speed he's going. And I think part of that is also like a habit formed by them because they're moving at these speeds.
Right.
They assume that somebody else is also going to be trying to respond at the top speed. Whereas Maki was moreover trying to physically endure his top speed and figure out how to respond eventually.
Ooh,
Right.
Yeah, that was well said. I like that.
Mhm. Love it.
Shiranui Gata. I love this
That was
spread.
a-
14, 15. I need to know more. Like, I need to know more about whatever the fuck that is.
It's
real.
a sumo thing.
Oh,
Is
sure.
it?
Yeah, that
So
makes
it's
sense.
like, you know, when you're like, I did a little reading about it, so I'm not some sort of sumo expert or anything, right?
Yeah,
But it's
yeah.
like when you're at the beginning of a match or whatever, and there's like this kind of, you know, opening stance or opening like kind of dance you're doing, just in terms of like the sumo, you know, ceremony, right?
Yeah.
And this Shiranui gata is one of the more offensively leaning ones, right? So there's like defensively leaning ones and there's offensively leaning ones. I think this is like one of the more offensive ones. But yeah, it's like it's a sumo technique, I guess. I don't really know much more about it.
So it was probably just
He
like,
said, "I'm
be
about
like,
to
get over here!
grab
Oh,
him."
I ain't
Nah,
moving.
she was finna grab his ass by the belt and like,
Maybe.
Yeah,
Maybe.
true.
slam him on his fucking head.
Yeah. That's so funny that she's just like, you don't even see a turnaround. She's literally just the other way from like pages 17 to 18.
Yeah, I noticed that too. I was like, man, she just whoop.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And like that's the kind of movement, you know what I mean? Like that makes sense. Like that's what Gege's been showing as far as movement goes inside of like Toji specifically. Like a lot of Toji's panels are like he's there 1 second and then he's in a completely different area and it doesn't make sense how he got there. And everyone is like, it doesn't make sense how he got here. Like that's too fast. So like that's all of Toji's like panels. You know what I mean?
So because there's even a moment where he like dodges blue.
Yeah.
Like he straight up like leans. his
Yeah,
head
like
back
mid getting sucked into blue, he dodges that shit.
Yeah.
Or when he grabs Megumi, like after they come out of the Dagon domain,
Yeah.
and then Toji's going to like the next strongest like cursed energy, you know, collection or whatever it was, and then all of a sudden like everyone's standing there in the same room, and then Megumi is just outside, like underneath the skyway down the street with Toji, like has him like in hand, and it's like, what, dude?
Also, I'm gonna give Gege credit and assume that he's implying that they use a lot of maximum power toe pivots because with as strong as they are, it's kind of believable when if you know.
Yeah.
You know, I'll give it to him. I'll give it to him.
When you said toe pivot, it reminded me of Hajime no Ippo. I'm not that far.
Yep.
I'm not that far in the manga, but I have seen the panel where I think it's like Takamura like whipping around like on his big toe, and there's like energy, like there's like energy illustrations around the toe as he like whips around at like Mach 3, breaking the sound barrier and shit. Like breaks his fucking shoe apart or some shit. I can't remember, but. Hell yeah, dude.
I love this kind of black narration boxes on page 7. This first one where it's like, the sin of the insignificant is ignorance of strength. And it's like, yo, okay,
Yes,
Jesus Christ. Poetic.
Very poetic. I love that. No one understood Toji except for possibly Satoru. Yeah.
And that's the other thing is that that's part of why I was like, I feel like him and Naobito secretly don't completely adhere to that belief about like Toji, like the way people like try to look down on him.
Oh, sure.
Because like this straight up indicates that he's like, the reason why Toji was rejected is because niggas was stupid.
Right.
Like, not because Toji is inadequate.
Yeah. Right.
Like he was basically said like everybody was just so soft, so baby lotion. They couldn't recognize what real was.
Or that they just are so, you know, so ingrained in their traditions. You know what I mean? That it's like in the understanding of what strength is, it has to come from cursed energy. You know what I mean? So sin of the insignificant is ignorance of strength. They're totally ignorant to the strength of someone with a fully realized heavenly restriction. And they're willfully ignorant of that because they assume that it means that you are less than, you know, whatever, because you don't have this attribute or you don't have this trait. So they couldn't possibly understand what true strength is because they're so wrapped up on it being centered around cursed energy.
It's wild that like the only two true heavenly restriction people we know of have both been in the Zenin clan.
Oh, you got Kokichi Muta as well. So you have Mekamaru had a heavenly restriction as well.
Oh, really?
So that
Go ahead.
I think we were talking about that in one of the GCs.
Didn't Mekamaru use cursed energy?
Yeah, but heavenly
so
restriction doesn't have to.
Yeah,
heavenly restriction doesn't have to be something that only people without cursed energy get. Heavenly restriction is just like conditions on your ability that you're born with, instead of like if you think
super extreme hunter condition,
right?
Also,
Yeah.
I guess I mean what I mean to say is it's wild that the only two like Tojis we've ever seen have been from the Zenin clan.
Oh,
My
sure.
personal theory is that
Yeah.
it is a technique,
Mhm.
so to speak, passed through their family. They just haven't realized that it's a technique that happens to take away cursed energy.
Oh
Sure.
shit.
Like that's how because I'm like that right there would just explain it. Like
Yeah.
just like the same way like we got two Naobitos, the same
Mhm.
way that like the 10 shadows technique is expected to pop up. Like
Yeah,
the
but
same
this
way
is-
blood manipulation. So it's like
There's always a minimum though. I don't think anybody gets a curse technique before age 7 or whatever, or 5 or 6 or something like that. But then like you have the 6 eyes inside of Gojo. That's noticeable as soon as he's born because it's not really
Right.
a technique. It's like just a part of whatever the 6 eyes is or whatever. And I think that heavenly restriction is something that like from the moment of birth, this thing is
Mhm.
decided for you. So
Right.
I don't think it behaves like a technique in that way. But
yeah, like it isn't. It's
Yeah.
but it's like one of those things that like it is
Inherited.
sure,
Yeah.
sure.
whatever you want to call those abilities.
Right, right.
Yeah. Yeah,
And if
no,
the
that makes
Zenin
sense.
clan doesn't recognize it as a thing, or if they didn't before, they will now, right? Where it's like,
Yeah,
oh, okay, another Zenin is another Toji. Okay, like this is clearly a thing. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, somebody will recognize it, but now there's about to be no more Zenians, so fuck.
And I love this situation because like everyone, including myself, kind of couldn't wait to see the Zenin and couldn't wait for them to be fleshed out and wait to see what higher tiers look like and what kind of characters they would be. And it looks like Gege made this decision to say, okay, here's all of the shitty things you need to know about the Zenin. We have some really cool ones inside of Maki, inside of Megumi. You know what I mean? Everybody loves Toji, etc. We saw Naobito show out a little bit in Shibuya Incident. Jinichi got, whooped before we found out anything about him. It's like we don't. I think the decision to do the Zenin arc in this way really at least says to me that Maki is not playing about this Zenin destruction, right?
Mhm.
And it's a bigger statement that she's so obviously she has no choice because she was literally just in the belly of the beast and had to fight her way out. But as far as like maybe a decision from Gege to go, hey, we know you want these things from these characters, but it's such a big statement from Maki and what she's doing right now that she's removing these people off the board before we can flesh them out because she's really trying to get these motherfuckers out of here. And it's almost more impactful that it's like, it feels like wasted potential, but it's like, this is what Maki had to do. Like, we don't have time to sit here and flesh these characters out. Maki needs to get them out of here. You know what I mean?
Right.
So it feels really cool to me. And if I think about it that way, but
Mhm.
in the back of my head, I was, especially after last chapter when Jinichi fucking like readied up that cold-blooded ass technique. I was like, fuck yeah, and then he just dies afterwards. I was like, oh fuck. I was like, that's so
Has a
raw.
smoke cloud
Yeah.
with his head. and
Yeah, I was
shit.
like, that's so raw and that's
Tosses
so
it in the
tight, but
front.
like, why so soon? You know what I mean? And I felt it, but then I was like, this is just Gege high octane storytelling. Yeah.
Part of me was like, man, I really hope the anime takes a little bit of liberties with this conflict because
Yeah.
I was like, damn, I was like, that technique was pretty raw. Like, I don't know, like, seeing her like maybe like deflect a couple blows before he decided to do like the big one.
Sure.
Yeah.
Like, but it's like I understand like for the pacing of the story, especially we saw that like with unfinished art, obviously like it's been like weighing on him and like his health, and so like
Yeah.
obviously take the time he needs, and
Absolutely.
that's fine.
Mhm.
It's like
Yeah.
man, like there's a lot that could have like happened with this that
Yeah.
like would have been, but like that's part of why I'm like maybe Naoya's like gonna be around.
Yeah, and Ranta,
Because-
we can assume is going to be another, reoccurring character that kind of matters from the Zenin clan, and who knows?
Yeah.
We have to, at least I want to assume that there are more Zenin clan members that kind of fall under the outlook of Maki, of Megumi, where they're like not so much into the traditions of it and kind of maybe want to see the same reform that they do, but like just didn't have the will or the conviction or the means to put a plan like that into action from the inside out. So now that Maki's kind of like scorched earth the whole situation, now other, less problematic members of the Zenin clan might be coming out of the fold to go, okay, well, let's reform this since all the douchebags are dead. You know what I mean? So we could see more Zenin stuff in that way. And, you never know what Gege has planned, for the clan. It does seem kind of underwhelming as far as like development for them. But if it goes into like Zenin reform and we see a bunch of really cool Zenin characters, then do we even really need to have the shitty underbelly of the clan really fleshed out all that much? We know they sucked. We know how they sucked. We saw the characters that sucked. They played a decent role in the narrative up until they were decimated. and then now maybe it's true Zenin, new world order Zenin that gets the focus moving forward, and that's kind of how we stay with the Zenin moving forward.
And that's kind of how I feel about the Zenin, is that like we've had people directly be like, if you're a woman and you're a sorcerer, this and this. If this, like, if you don't have cursed energy, this and this. And so it's like, okay, cool. Like, people who have these ideas we've been told about, we know. So it's like, we don't necessarily need to spend a lot of time with these people unless they're actually going to be like doing something with the plot moving forward.
Right.
Which is, like I said, like the thing with Naoya. Like, we keep getting stuff with him.
Yeah.
And like that, like, to me, this does set up potential, like, with his reverence for Toji, like, for him to actually like switch sides and help them start getting some of that reform popping.
Yeah.
But like with Jinichi, with Ogi, like,
I don't know if he's really about the reform though. He seems like he's on that fuck Maki energy.
Until he got his fucking shit pressed in, and now he's probably about to wake up a new man if he does.
This is one of those cases where getting whooped into respect would actually make sense here.
Yeah.
Just because of like
fine.
Because it's like he wants her to be like Toji ultimately.
Yeah.
Sure.
So, all right, cool. You're living up to what I want.
Yeah. Yeah, I like this. I like the Zenin situation. I like everybody that you thought you were going to learn about in the Zenin clan is now dead. All that is Gege saying like these are not the Zenin clan members that were supposed to have a drastic impact on the future of the story. Naota's still here, or Naoya's still here. Bronta's still here. Megumi, Maki, and potentially other Zenin clan members that could potentially be introduced later. If we want to keep the Zenin plot going, we have characters there to do so. The ones that were killed, you saw what you saw. They sucked anyway. Get them out of here. It's new Zenin stuff moving forward. I would love that.
For sure.
Hell yeah.
Oh yeah. Well, does anybody have anything else?
I think I'm good on JJK this week.
Yeah.
I think so too. Well, with that, I think we can go ahead and get right into chapter 199 of Dr. Stone, Super Alloys. We start off with this pretty cool cover of Suika in some armor.
Dude, the Suika armor. Oh my god, that's so sick.
The paladin.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
So precious.
Her legs
like,
are just
maintaining that
completely
wholesome...
exposed.
Yeah.
What were you saying?
I was just saying her legs are completely exposed though. Like,
yeah.
Oh, I didn't notice that.
I did not notice that until right now.
Hey man, super alloys are expensive. You can't make a full armor just yet.
Full armor kids. But, I'm loving Zeno this chapter, man. I've always loved him so much, his character, and I'm just so glad he's a part of the gang now.
Yeah, this is tight. This is tight.
Fuck yeah.
And I'm still suspicious, but I mean, even though they said we have no reason to be or whatever,
right?
I just can't help. His presence on screen is just so ominous that it's
he's got like for all intents and purposes, we know Senku was kind of a mad scientist, but Zeno actually
he's a mad scientist, like really.
Yeah, he's trying to just rule the world for real.
Like, dude woke up and was like, man, the planet is a free empire.
Yeah.
I love how let's go.
I love how Zeno definitely is painted up to be this like evil mad scientist that wants to rule the world, and I'm sure he said something, like along that. But at the end of the day, like when it comes down to it, like once his means to be an evil scientist, with a world domination plot are taken from him, it's he's still just a guy who loves science and wants to see it work. You know what I mean? And even though he's kind of the foil, I think is the proper term to Senku in regard to his personality and his motivations or whatever. But at the common denominator is that love for science, and that shines through Zeno's character the whole time, probably the entire time that he's been in the story. I've had this feeling in the back of my head: can he be trusted? No, not all the way, obviously, but like in certain circumstances, there's no reason not to trust him. I like that fluidity of moral ambiguity inside of his character, and I love how he's still just such a strong shonen personality on top of all of it. While he's in the comic. Yeah, go ahead, Aniki.
I think a good way to like kind of point that out is like anytime they're building something and they're like, "Hey Zeno, like we need to build this." He's just like, "All right, cool." Like,
right.
Like he'll build. Yes, he did the blinking Morse code thing so that they could be found and traveled, like they can travel and get them or whatever.
Mhm.
But anytime there's time to do an invention, he's not going to sabotage it.
Right.
Because, all right, if he's stuck with them, then he might as well help them fix it, because the problems that they're addressing are problems he'll have to address anyway.
Right.
Like, even if he wants to rule the planet, like, it doesn't matter if Y-Man isn't eventually addressed.
Right.
So,
Well, and it's like Nox said, he's just a true science lover. Like anytime you see Senku doing his little like snake things, and you know Zeno's been right there with him, like fucking in this panel on fucking page 5 on the top, man. He's like, they both got hearts in their eyes. Talking about,
sure, yeah.
Elegant, no, a true stone sanctuary.
Yeah.
It is tight.
Yeah.
I love that, like, in terms of like the foil aspect, right? Like before this chapter, Zeno was framed obviously as like a bad guy, right? Like he's a bad scientist. And now he's on the team, but he can still keep that aspect of like shady, dark. He's like the dark scientist right here in this chapter, where science does have aspects that are problematic and dangerous, right? Like all the inventions that Zeno is making here, they have a byproduct of like poison gas or something, right? Or like radiation, right? Radiation's bad, you know what I mean? Like it'll give you cancer or whatever, right? So it's awesome to have the opportunity that like Senku can focus on pure good, quote unquote, science, you know, science with no ill side effects, and have Zeno do the science with the negative consequences, and he's fine with that. He's like, you know what? Just because you make a bomb doesn't mean you have to use it for bad things, right? Like you could use a bomb to blow up a mountain to make a dam or something, right? Like all these bad sciences, you can use them for good, and now Zeno can have both, right? He can be the bad scientist but use it for good, which is pretty tight.
He likes all the controversial experiments, you know what I mean? He kind of gravitates towards the things that have that malevolent, you know, undertone to them. You know what I mean? Like this can be used for evil, and I'm excited about that, you know what I mean? Because I'm just excited about science in general. But like the sneaky dark ones are the ones that I kind of like, you know, the most or whatever. It's just such a cool dynamic.
But there's also a small undertone to this that is like kind of been a prevalent theme through like a lot of this generation of like comics, where like you have it in My Hero, in Jujutsu Kaisen with like Nanami, when he's like, you know, Yuji Itadori's a child. When you think about it, if they, you know, like if the nickel, like whatever leaks, then, you know, and poisons everyone, then he dies. There's a certain level of, there's also the adult here taking, like the more adult person taking on the more, if this goes wrong, I'm the one who suffers aspect of the science too, with like, again, so like this in the new era where we have like adults actually like function and do still take on responsibilities. Like, so it's like that little extra layer too, like him like also protecting Senku to a degree, like as his student from like the more dangerous aspects.
I love that. I love that.
That's like some unspoken shit, you know what I mean? Like that's a really cool spot. It's like, I am the adult here. We're all doing cool science stuff that we all love, but at the end of the day, it's like these are a bunch of kids here, and I'm the leading scientific mind, like professionally and probably in regard to skill, you know what I mean? At the end of the day, probably if you compare the numbers, probably put Zeno slightly above Senku, you know what I mean? So like that level of responsibility taking subconsciously, or however, whatever term you want to use for it not being apparent on the page, is really cool to think about for Zeno.
Right. There are a ton of little things in this chapter I thought were really tight. For example, like page 3, right? They make a Geiger counter. And I don't know if you've ever like seen a Geiger counter or used one or heard one or whatever, right? Like it makes like a clicking noise, right? Like when it gets closer to radiation, it's like,
you know, like a predator mask.
Right. But the sound, the sound effect here is Geiger, right? Like that's not what a Geiger counter sounds like, but that's the sound effect they picked, right? Like that's so cool.
That is tight. That is tight. I didn't even. I mean, you're the Kana guy. You know what I mean? So you like notice that kind of stuff, but it's always so cool when you point it out, because it's like, dude, that's a really cool thing to slide in there on purpose. It's like who would? I mean, besides Japanese people, I wonder how many other people notice something like that.
Right.
The other thing, when we were talking about Zeno, I feel like you can kind of tell that he has like a small liking for Chrome too.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sure.
Oh yeah, well, because Chrome is a budding scientist.
Yeah.
Like I feel like he's like, man, this little rock niglet.
Yeah, I love that, dude. Zeno is such a well written and well thought out character. All of the characters in Dr. Stone are well thought out, and I feel like perfect for the role that they were written for. But it is so cool to see that underneath all of the flamboyant things that Boichi and Riichiro kind of like do to like show you what kind of person, you know, Dr. Zeno is, there is a lot of really cool unspoken shit in the background. Like, yo, this kid is a budding scientist. He's a nerd. Probably the top two things that scientists are the most excited about is the scientific method actually being applied and working, and young people showing interest in being scientists, you know what I mean, and wanting to kind of do the same things that they do. It's a really cool, like, idol, you know, like mentor kind of, you know, relationship that scientists just want to eat up and love, you know what I mean? And it's like, you see that in like all of the real world scientists that we've ever known about, Carl Sagan, fucking Neil deGrasse Tyson, you know, etc. They all get really Bill Nye. They're like, wait, kids are thinking about science right now? Hold on, we need more scientists. We need more nerds. We need more geeks. You know what I mean? Like, they're all about that shit. You know what I mean? You can feel that in characters like Senku and Dr. Zeno, and that's just really cool unspoken shit that you can notice in the comic.
Right.
Also, I appreciate the fact that they took the time to make canning for food, like food cans.
Yeah.
I mean, it's
like it's a thing it's like a thing about Dr. Stone that I've always just appreciated is all these little inventions that it's like, well, this is boring, and it's like, no,
it makes sense because this is what we're building right now. This is a byproduct. We have extra of these, so like, why not do this if we have, you know? And they cover all of those little things leading up to the big invention. You know what I mean? And that's a lot of the fun of Dr. Stone for me. Is to see it all kind of like laid out on the map, like puzzle piece, bird's eye view in that way.
Yep. And like they mentioned that one of the benefits of this stainless steel food containers, right? Where like in our universe, right? Like we don't have cans made of stainless steel, right? Just regular ass aluminum or tin or something, you know, like with some coating, right? And that's why they don't last forever. But the stainless steel shit, which is like super expensive for, you know, modern day metal or whatever, like that they say like it will make it last 3,700 years. So if, for example, Y-Man freezes everyone, we'll still have food when everyone wakes up, guaranteed, right? Even if it takes so long that it naturally undoes, like what it did for Senku, we'll still have food, which is super awesome. And they mentioned that on page 10 here, we can finally get to reviving cities worth of people all around the world. And on page 11, you see Taiju with a bottle of the revival fluid, and it says 75. They've already unfrozen 75 people in this chapter. And that's who like lives in Super Alloy City now, later in the chapter.
Yeah, because it's like a party at the end of the motherfucking chapter.
Yeah.
A bunch of people we've never seen before.
I was wondering if I was like, am I tripping? Am I like... But like I'm not tripping like that. They free a bunch of people.
I didn't notice the 75 on the bottle. I'm gonna tell you that right now. I did not see that. Notice that number.
That's a really good spot.
That's a great spot. Yeah.
So the one thing that I am worried about is that I always agree that Tsukasa was right to worry about like people coming back and trying to like just shoehorn and force that old way. Like even like Ryusei, like I was always like, oh man, like, you know how people are like, oh man, if Zoro runs into Sanji once he gets to Wano, that's how I felt about Tsukasa and Ryusei.
Oh, really? Oh, sure. Yeah.
Like,
yeah, that's an interaction. I feel like we never see them interact directly. Ryusui and
we don't get a lot of that.
Yeah.
So, like, I was like, man, he will put that boy on a shirt in a heartbeat. Like, the first thing that boy did was be like, I'm resurrecting capitalism.
I'm gonna make money. Yeah. That is interesting. Yeah.
I literally never thought about that.
And so, but I like to believe that some of these people are going to be like, okay, objectively, even if like they weren't conscious during these, you know, 3,707 years, whatever. Sorry, like 3,709 years.
Yeah.
Some of them would have gotten to see their other people get turned from stone. So I feel like everybody's like, all right, objectively, I saw that. We're going to help you build all this stuff.
Yes. No, I think that's a great point, because like you could imagine as people get revived, they're going to have their own motivations. But I think if they witness other people being unfrozen by this team of kids who are really good at science, like I'd be like, all right, I mean, maybe you do know what you're doing. Okay,
maybe
I'll be on
the
your
old
team.
way is just not, it's just obsolete at this point.
Right.
Well, it's hard to like come out of stone like, all right, I run such and such. Fucking we get to work.
Yeah.
Like, what are you talking about, dude?
Your building disintegrated 3,000 years ago. Sorry.
Yeah.
I do think that that plot point will come back around at some point. I don't know how long Dr. Stone wants to go for, but I do think that it would make a lot of sense for those fears of Shishio Tsukasa to kind of show up as potential conflict in later arcs. Like once people are starting to be woken up and everything is going swimmingly, you then have the collections of people who are trying to do exactly what Tsukasa thought that they might. And then that could be a potential obstacle, because how do you deal with that? You don't do it the Shishio Tsukasa way, you know what I mean? And civilization is starting to come back to life under Senku and Zeno. So like everything is going positively, but now all of a sudden there's this negative older generation that's trying to come reclaim the world, and it's like how do you deal with that in a non-physical way that Shishio would want to? Now we have to do it politically, now we have to do it in other ways that could be really interesting for the series.
Arguably this could be seen as a bit of a cop-out, but I don't necessarily think so. I do think we have to get like an actual natural disaster, because there's been such an emphasis on science throughout the series, and people have always been afraid of like scientific, or like scientists are always like, eventually we just have to have XYZ, like this volcano has to erupt, which could potentially cause massive harm, this has to happen, like certain things just are inevitable, like the big one that might eventually break California off, like those kinds of things that are always on the table. So the fact that they've been able to like just constantly find populations kind of suggests that like none of those the big one events have really happened in the story.
Oh wow,
and
that's really interesting.
The only way that I can kind of see like this not becoming, because like if Dr. Stone doesn't want to try to write all that social like concept, because it's mostly about like the physical sciences, it's not completely dedicated to a whole social science narrative, and like if that's where they want to go, then like I'm here for it. Yeah. But I don't know if that's like what this story wants to be about. Right. So like I think that conflict kind of has to be a thing, and I could easily see it being something that potentially comes up after they go to the moon and encounter Y-Man. Yeah. Where they'll like, because they haven't been like building a bunch of telescopes necessarily, or as they're building telescopes and they go up to the moon to see Y-Man, somebody on the ground notices something, and then like that's when we have to deal with something like meteors or something like that, and that's just inherently going to destroy a bunch of the statues regardless, like irredeemably they won't be salvageable. So
dang, that's really interesting.
Yeah,
that's a ton of interesting points.
And what if eventually, like later on in the story of Dr. Stone, we start getting those social those social discourse conversations surrounding like what kind of science they're doing now later, like obviously the science that brings the world back to a civilized state, no one's really going to argue with that. But once it is back to that civilized state, you have to start talking about sciences that are going to try to bring back, newer technologies. Like what if for some reason Zeno and Senku, I don't know what reason they would have, but I'm trying to think of really controversial, science breakthroughs like the atom bomb and, like mustard gas and shit like that. You know what I mean? Like these are all things that people have like a really serious problem with us inventing. You know what I mean? So like, what if that is an area of like post civilization rebuilding storytelling that Dr. Stone tries to go into? Like, yo, Senku wants to make an atom bomb now. Like, what's up with that? You know what I mean? Like, could it like
nuclear power is a very real like discussion that could be on the table, especially with them like being a super alloy city, finding all these metals. Like it almost seems like it, like now that you mention it, like an inevitability is like getting a hold of that stuff. Right. Especially when we have Zeno on the table who could be like making stuff and finding little minerals on the side and sneaking them.
Oh shit, that's the turning point. Like maybe they create a nuclear reactor for like wholesome purposes, civilization purposes, and then Zeno underhandedly is taking that technology and siphoning it towards like atom bomb research, like underneath Senku's nose for whatever fucking reason that may be. I don't know. I don't even know how like radiation and whatnot works with bombs or whatever. I'm just like throwing things out there.
Even if you never know.
I'm assuming
even if it's just a dirty bomb, that's enough like to tank the soil, tank the water supplies.
Right.
Yeah.
And, like just really damn super alloy city, because even now, like which Dr. Stone, like the most that they're gonna do, like theoretically, is catch up to the technology we have now. In theory.
Right.
Because of where the where the story is technically at the beginning.
Right.
So even now we don't have the technology to purify an irradiated source.
Right.
You know, like Japan had a reactor break down, and like everything within like 20 kilometers of it was basically considered unlivable.
Yeah.
And you know, that's an archipelago. It's not like they had a lot of space, but like they had to not have people living there.
Yeah.
Right.
And like to the extent where they're literally just like digging up bags of dirt to like remove the dirt because it's so radioactive. So
Yeah.
dealing with this, like that threat in Dr. Stone would be even more, because like you can't just like pick everybody up and move as easily as you, like even now it's difficult, but like with where he would probably get that bomb at like timeline wise, it's going to be sooner than they'd be able to have like an expressway to get everybody away from that area anyway.
I feel like realistically, we probably won't see this kind of storytelling in Dr. Stone. I want to assume that like the main, you know, like brunt of the storytelling is going to be about getting people back to that pre, you know, the initial petrification, back to like, you know, a before state to that, and that'll probably make sense as a conclusion. You know, they build the rocket, they go fight Y-Man, they come back down, they rebuild civilization, and then it's over. But I mean, like, if it, you know, that's the cool thing about Dr. Stone, is that it is the kind of story that could continue on after that, you know, conclusion or whatever, and people I feel like would still be interested in seeing like what kind of social issues that, you know, could be tackled after civilization is rebuilt. You know what I mean? But at the same time, it's like, I feel like if it did go into that after rebuilding civilization and that whole arc finishing, I feel like then we'll start, you know, talking about like, is this going on too long? You know what I mean? Like, did it do what it was supposed to do? Like, is this 7 deadly sins now? But like Dr. Stone.
And I think
like
if
it's
anything,
fun to like talk about what they can do with these pieces, but that is definitely one of those.
Yeah.
I feel like we've lost the plot.
Yeah. What were you gonna say, Eagle?
I think if anything, we might delve a little bit into that. Like eventually they're going to revive some not so good people.
Right.
That's where we'll see some of that. Maybe people bombing or serial killing or whatever the fuck.
Yeah.
But like, I don't know. I've never gotten vibes from Zeno. Like he wants to blow up a fucking city with
yeah. And I brought up the bomb just because of like
he just worked at NASA. You know
I was just bringing up like controversial sciences and inventions that people have issues with socially in history. Yeah. What were you saying, Nick?
Yeah, like I think the more reasonable thing to assume that Zeno would do is like eventually Senku and the squad are going to leave, right? In this chapter, they basically confirmed that they still do need to go to other areas of the planet to get other materials for the rocket. And I think they're implying here that Zeno is going to stay in Super Alloy City and be like the mayor or the head scientist of Super Alloy City. Like this seems to be his like, because he says like, I'm going to build the rocket and y'all are going to build your boat. And I think I would assume that means you build your boat and go ride it off into other places, you know what I mean, to get the other shit, while I stay here and build the engine for the rocket. So while they're out exploring the world, that there can be that like sedition, you know what I mean? Like he can be trying to like make his own little kingdom in Super Alloy City, and I think that could definitely be a very likely point of conflict going forward.
Sure.
They get back and everybody's like, "Have you seen King Zeno? He's looking really good today."
Right.
You're like, what the fuck? Yeah.
So now here's a question then too. Do you think they go back to Corn City first?
Yes.
Yeah.
Resurrect allies, so that way they have a base there, get some stuff popping. So like, especially since if Zeno's gonna be left there, then I feel like Chrome potentially would have to go to the Corn City, or like we need more like something to like build that up just in case. Because I don't think they just completely want to be willing to risk ceding Super Alloy City to Zeno just in case.
Yeah, we need big science people in every area of territory. I could see that. Yeah,
for sure.
I mean, they're going. I don't think they'd send. I don't know. They for sure got to go back there to revive some motherfuckers. You know what I'm saying?
For sure.
Joel still got his hand smashed in the fucking show.
Yo,
Healed.
Yeah, he's gonna be fine though from the stone. Yeah.
Trailer.
I wonder if it's broken off though.
If it is, they'll just reattach
they'll
it.
just
Right?
glue it back
put
on.
it back together. Yeah,
They got all the pieces. You're good. Yeah. We got what's Taiju's girlfriend's name? The arts and crafts major.
Yuzuriha.
Yuzuriha. Yeah. She'll do it. She'll get his hands back. Isn't Yuzuriha in Corn City too?
Yeah,
I think so.
Yeah,
Yeah, for sure.
I
Yeah.
think they're all in the
Yeah.
I
same
think you
theory.
cannot trust Zeno around this revival fluid. They're like
Yeah.
willy-nilly reviving people. Like I think if you let him get like one little, he's gonna be like, oh, now I know. What's
that's
up,
where
Stanley? My guy. Come on.
I bet that they're when they take the boat and go to other cities, they might take Stanley's statue as collateral. Hostage. Like Zeno literally thought like, oh, or maybe Stanley thought in his internal monologue, like, they're gonna hold me hostage. They're gonna hold my statue hostage and force Zeno to do shit. And they basically will. I mean, they've agreed that that's what's gonna happen. Now, will they trust Zeno and leave the statue? Or will they take the statue and be like, well, okay, build the rocket engine, then we'll talk. You know what I mean? We'll see.
I think they
engine,
know.
we'll talk.
I think they know that, like, as long as Zeno is in an area where he has the same kind of resources that Senku could use to do anything, that they can't just leave him with Stanley and all of the guns in the same area and then just cross their fingers and hope Zeno doesn't figure out how to make revival fluid and then bring his army back. Like, no way. They have to take the statue and be like, do what we say, and then and they actually even like talk about that in this chapter. They're like, of course, Zeno is only working with us because we're promising to, to revive Stanley, under the whatever the saying that they had is that, like, it was like option A, you were just doing duties in warfare. Option B, you're a mass murderer. Obviously, we'll choose option A if we can, all work together and do everything good. Isn't that right, Zeno? And he's like, yeah, of course. That's why I'm doing everything. Yeah,
I see how it is.
I mean, I catch the vibe. Like, we get these dark vibes from Zeno and stuff, but like, I do. Part of me thinks that he like understands the dynamic of the situation they're in, and that they do need to work together
for sure.
Like, even over and above like the blackmail of Stanley's statue. Like he's like, we got this.
Sure.
We got this moon situation we need to figure out.
Of course, Zeno's going to be down for that. Yeah,
someone's up there fucking with us. Okay, so like, we got to go. You know what I'm saying? So like, I kind of think he is just part of the squad now in a way.
It's cool.
Regardless of how like he has his own machinations, it's like, well, even if I like were to defeat Senku right now, Y-Man is still up there.
Right.
So literally, what's the point of me trying anything slick down here?
Right.
When Moon nigga.
Yeah, we gotta fight the Moon guy, and then we can get back to our beef.
We might even need to like, what if Y-Man's up here on some crazy Moon Army shit with like a bunch of robots or some shit, and like we need Stanley,
Automatus and Enel up there. Y-Man is Enel.
They go up to the moon and you just get a dialogue bubble.
Zap the shit out of everybody. Yo.
A minor thing I noticed, and I had to look it up or whatever, and I just thought it was interesting. Say on page 14, right? Zeno is holding a can, and he's talking about how the stainless steel is like super basic stainless steel, and it's like basically useless. But he's holding this can and it has this word. It's a French word, gibier. And I was like, what the fuck is that? So I had to look it up. It means game meat, like deer or boar or things you'd kill in the wild, wild game, that kind of meat. I just thought that was interesting. I've never seen that word before.
I've never seen that either.
Interesting that
I thought it said Geiger.
French to put on there.
Yeah, I don't know why I thought it said Geiger, because earlier it's just a G word and I just like didn't even think about it. I just kept it pushing.
I looked at it and just thought it was a play on like Gerber.
That's what I thought too. That's what I thought at first. But I looked. Is this like a real word? And it is a real word, yeah. And you can go back to like say page 10 where Tsukasa and Hyoga are like have like tons of pigs. They're holding a bunch of pigs, then Francois is like boiling it all up and canning it, and then and they label it game meat or whatever.
Yeah, and then he makes the fucking chef knives, and then Francois instantly is just in her element. Look at how happy she is. Like, this is where I'm supposed to be. Thanks for the knives. Fuck yeah.
Oh, crazy,
man.
Hell yeah, man.
Great chapter though.
Incredible chapter.
Oh yeah. Also, the fact that they chose to illustrate the alloys via a giant robot. That's kind of hilarious to me, because like I'm like, does Chrome even have an idea of what this would look like?
Right.
Yeah,
that's wild for sure. But I think that about does it for Dr. Stone.
Yeah, I'm good.
Yeah.
All right. Well, with that, I think we can go ahead and get into chapter 65 of Mashle, Mosh Burn Dead and Running in the Rain.
Fire color page.
Yeah, it's vibrant.
Very vibrant.
Pops.
I love Komoto's palette.
Mm-hmm.
The colors that he chooses are always very, very good. Very good color stories.
Very stylized, while still MASH really does have its own style.
It does.
Yeah.
It's cartoony, but like high detail.
Bowl cut Jesus.
Yeah, and like
bowl cut.
There's a lot of those like blur effect camera designed to make it look like it's being like taken with a real camera.
Right.
Just like little tricks and MASH that I really appreciate.
Hell yeah.
We started off with some hype ass information from this page in the sky, bro.
Yeah.
Like we get this information that Wahlberg and Innocent Zero were both pupils of this mage named Adam, who apparently like built their entire society.
Adam and Eve.
Yep.
Right.
What?
No.
And it's so funny that I'm like that they're touching on like Greek mythology and the Master Canes and like Adam and Eve, because I'm like going through like Record of Ragnarok right now on Twitch, and it's like that's what it's all about. And you have like Adam versus Zeus and like all this stuff just happening around the same time in the comics that I'm reading. I'm seeing mythology and like areas of Western comic books that I'm reading right now, just all at the same time. I'm here for it. I fucking love this lore. You know what I mean? But it's tight that inside of it's just a cool angle for Mashle to take inside of its lore to like tap into Greek mythology and things like that in its power system. I just think that so many creators have amazing ideas like for concepts in their comic books right now. I'm like so excited about it.
Right.
Yeah.
This Adam dude's staff looks terrifying.
Yes. Oh my god.
It's like rib cage looking thing or whatever. Wow.
And they're like, nobody can send him to his dark magic, and I was like, well, now you got to bring him in because he's a dark magic user, so automatically I want to see it.
Right.
Yeah.
It lends to the fact that like isn't the whole mythos in that like Adam, part of his rib became Eve or something like that?
Yeah. That's right. That's right.
Did. Oh yeah.
So yeah.
Nice.
So that would be the
rib cage
Eve
thing
wand.
makes sense.
Yeah,
the
it does.
Eve wand.
The Eve wand. Oh, and then are we gonna get the Eves like stand? You know what I mean? Like how like Carpaccio or whatever had like the nurse like stand thing. Are we gonna get like we could see something like that? That'd be crazy.
Damn, nice.
Yeah.
We get this. We move into this where this dude's got no face,
bro.
I was gonna say, how did y'all feel about the lack of face reveal?
That page turn was disgusting, bro. I was like, fuck yeah, there's that Mashle shit that we haven't seen. I feel like since Abyss Razor. Remember the Abyss Razor like page turn where it was like super high detail,
the mask,
like with the mask and shit. Like I was like, where have panels like those been?
Also, like, just the intensity of the detail for a no face.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Right.
Because it's like you can almost see like a fingerprint in the face.
Yeah, totally. With like the way like the stark blacks like come into that like very paintbrushy style outline going into the details and like the screen tones used for the face to like really make it feel 3D and give it that depth that really makes it scary against the stark black.
And it just puts you on the edge of your seat to know what's going on with this guy when Wahlberg is like, you've abandoned your humanity. What does that mean? What does this dude have to do to get to this point, whatever the fuck this no face point where he can morph his face into this? Do you guys think this is this person's true face?
I think so.
The one that they do show?
I think the point of what Wahlberg is saying is that like, this is probably the one that's more familiar to Wahlberg.
Yeah. I think this is like their original face, but also this face doesn't look like entirely like masculine.
Right.
No, it looks very young and androgynous or whatever for sure, definitely.
So like part of me is like, what if this is secretly Mash's mom?
What?
That was really interesting.
No. Oh my god. Because he said he was his dad.
Yeah, but like I'm like, you.
I mean, I think
going on here?
Yeah.
It like a.
Are you like an 8? Like because he was like, I want to absorb Mash, so it could be that like
on 9.
You
kind of in the top right panel, you see like what looks like pecs to me.
Oh sure, like the striations.
But I don't think it is actually. I think that is, if you look at the bottom of 9, you can see Innocent Zero's chest is those squares.
Oh,
those cubes.
sure. So it's just
I think it's those
body.
cubes.
It's just body horror. Yeah.
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 Super interesting. This
Very
cube,
interesting.
like reforming his body.
Because 9 also kind of looks like he's wearing lipstick. That's why I'm like, are you?
Oh,
Yeah,
sure.
Like, we have the thing with Marconi where she was like, "Wait, are you a girl?" I was like, "Yeah." And it's like, "Oh, I was wondering about that."
Yeah.
That's very true. Very true.
Yeah.
So I'm like, "Wait, hold on."
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's
we
interesting.
Get this crazy ass spell from Innocent Zero.
Times.
Yeah.
It looks like they're about to. Yeah, they're about to bring somebody back from the dead or some shit. Somebody crazy.
Yeah, who's in that coffin?
Wahlberg. Why is he so surprised that he would use a forbidden spell?
Yeah.
Okay, so you know what I just realized? And I'm like glad. Okay, so this now makes me glad that MASH doesn't have like a super popular following yet.
Sure.
Because the Naruto comparisons could have really started coming in here.
Oh shit.
Because like you got it's an attack during a festival.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
The feminine face reveal after like is clearly experiments in immortality.
Right.
Yep.
The sensei or the old person.
We've
being
been
like, "You left
comparing
behind."
this to Sarutobi versus Hiruzen for like a couple
Yeah.
chapters now.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
And it's like, bro, if
And I
we
don't
get
even
the
mean it in a
scene.
bad way. It's
Yeah,
just,
no, this is good. This is all really good. Like just like as a setup, like as a template for a point of conflict in a shonen story. Like it feels fine that it's similar to Naruto in these ways. It really just comes down to execution, you know, whenever these comparisons are made. And MASH executes differently than anything, drastically differently than anything that it pulls influence from. You can feel the Harry Potter in there. You can feel the One Punch Man in here. You can feel the Naruto in here, but it doesn't feel lazy. Like you're using these influences to tell your story instead of, you know, whatever.
Because like the only reason I even thought about it, I was like, well, he's probably gonna bring back somebody from his past, and then it was like, oh, but then I was like, it doesn't matter because I was like, the fact that you can enjoy it and like you have to really sit there and think about it means that they're probably doing a good job.
I said Sarutobi versus Hiruzen. I meant Orochimaru versus Hiruzen. Sarutobi and Hiruzen are the same person.
Yeah.
I was thinking.
I know what you like in my brain. I was like, I know what you mean.
You said it. I was thinking that, but I didn't want to put you on blast.
Yeah, it's one of those things where like I would have watched the episode and been like, "What the fuck are you talking about, kid?" So I'm glad that I remember. Please fucking call me out for those things. Oh my god.
Well, I guess if we're following that line of thought, like the only person, you know, obviously in the Hiruzen fight. It was their predecessors, the dope ones. So, like, is this Adam in the coffin?
Oh my god! Yo, if it is, I mean, that's fantastic.
We already got the space backdrop too, so like
incredible. I love that.
And that like inky looking.
Ooh. There's a cross on it.
Yeah, there is a whole cross on it. Bruh, love it. Need it to be.
So I'm wondering, like. It says, you know, the ability times the living dead, and there's a clock in the background, and the clock is at 2. So I'm wondering, like, is this this must be 3rd level magic.
Oh, sure.
And it's 2, so can we assume this is 2 in the morning, aka this is the night of the living dead? So, like, this is some sort of, like, meta level, because this is time magic, right? What does zombies and coffins have to do with time? Unless it's, like, Night of the Living Dead, like a zombie movie, right? And 3rd level time magic is so powerful and abstract, you can like create a coffin out of the concept of the night, which is a time of the living dead. You know what I mean?
I see where you're going with this.
Yeah, it's like it's very interesting. Like what is he doing? How's this time magic? Exactly?
I guess I just assumed that either this spell is forbidden and it's so dense with destructive power that there has to be a time caveat on it to some degree, to where like you only get to have this spell and be able to use it for a certain amount of time. But I feel like it might make a little bit more sense if the timer is counting down to the actual full manifestation execution of the technique.
Okay, I can see that. I can see that. Yeah.
It could also be the way that it works is it targets specifically the time, the exact moment a person died in time.
Oh.
So it's like it's the time that they were set, like their soul was pulled from that time right before they die, and then dropped back in once this time limit is over. Because like, and that's kind of be thinking about how I think it was in Bleach when he was like, I grabbed 100 nights from the Soul Society's future. And I was like, whoa, how did that? Okay. So I'm just thinking, like, if you're just like grabbing actual time, or like if somebody was killed, you're grabbing the time they would have lived.
Sure.
Oh shit.
Yeah.
If they hadn't been murdered, something like that.
It's so like, man, dude, this Mashle is doing a really good job, because I know that this is going to make sense to the world of Mashle and I mean, obviously Magic still has a lot of fleshing out as far as like raw rules and shit for it goes. But I mean, like, as wild of a concept as this is, like, I feel like once it actually starts to be used, it'll make, because right now it just seems like a whole bunch of brand new concepts in the world of like magic of MASH that we're seeing for the first time.
Sure.
So like it kind of seems like it's like off the railsy, I want to say, you know, but I'm sure Komoto will tie it all back and it'll all feel great. But as of right now, it's like, holy shit, what am I supposed to think of this right now? And it's just like, I love that in between stage before it becomes cohesive. You know what I mean?
And I think part of this was also to make sure to kind of check that, like, yes, MASH is powerful, but there's a reason this fight is taking place where it is. And it's because MASH isn't strong enough to be chilling right next to two people fighting with God one.
Yeah. Or
and like,
you just don't want to have MASH fucking punch his way through the Wahlberg obstacle. You know what I mean? Like, who knows what Komoto will eventually do when MASH has to confront Innocent Zero hand to hand. Is he going to play it up like a gag? Is it going to be as short as Margaret versus MASH? Who knows? But in the meantime, we need Wahlberg to show out and potentially catch this L. And if MASH is the answer to the conflict, you need to keep him separated from everything if you are going to have him be the answer in that way. Otherwise, people are going to be like, why didn't you stop this earlier? Yeah.
Something that is very martial that I could see happening is like, there's a time limit on this technique. He's like, oh, you got this long to kill me before, you know, this motherfucker comes out and we about to mob on you type shit. And like, Wahlberg's struggling, the time limit hits, and like simultaneously Mosh gets like launched up into the sky or something, and like woo, hits this dude in the chin as he comes out the coffin with the back of his fucking head, and like, they go off somewhere and fucking, and then Mosh fights him. I don't know, some stupid shit.
Or
the dude like gives like exposition,
just,
like, or he says like, when this clock reaches, you know, midnight, this dude's gonna come out of the coffin, and MASH just like holds the
door closed.
Holds them like so they can't move the clock. And it's like, no, that's not how it worked. You're supposed to do that.
Yeah, you can see the fucking look on Innocent Zero's face when Mosh, like, I can just picture it. If Mosh comes in and does some stupid shit, like he'll be having this monologue, like, the time limit is complete. We're about to fucking kill you. And then he's just like, when Mosh comes by and fucking smacks him.
Ultimate test. Can you show emotion without a face?
Oh shit. Yo. Holy shit, man.
Oh yeah. It could be one of those big head panels that we haven't gotten in a long time.
Could be one of those.
The big head surprise panels, like where they got the small ass face and their big ass fucking dome.
Yeah.
The Mashle classic.
The only thing that felt awkward to me this chapter was like MASH and what is this dude? What is Bull Cut Jesus' name? Cell War. I feel like, I don't know, I feel like they are coming back to this you actually forgot who I am scene. Like I feel like it's overstayed. It's like 3 times we have gotten this scene now.
Yeah, this is one of those where yes, you're a funny series, but it's not the time for that. Like just like sometimes it's just not. It's like, sorry, put that away.
Yeah.
Although I did think it was funny how he's picturing his head as a fucking cream.
Yeah,
puff.
MASH vision was funny. At least there's something like new that's added every time we come back to this. You forgot who I am scene. But it is weird. It felt like almost maybe like, okay, we got to show MASH in this chapter a little bit more than we had planned. Maybe just throw the throw the "you forgot me" scene in there again. I don't know, but it just feels
like,
so awkwardly placed to me.
And you say that, and now that I'm like, oh yeah, that is a very jump editorial thing.
Yeah.
And the first 100 chapters to have happen to an author, especially, like, well, make sure you do this. The main character's got to be there.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Yeah. Could be something like that. I don't know. But that was just like, I don't really have too much to complain about in Mashle generally. But that was just one thing where it's like, I should probably say something because that did kind of like, I remember being like, really? Again?
Sure.
Okay. Yeah, it didn't do anything for me. It was just like, all right, that happened.
Yeah.
Right.
But other than that, incredible chapter. Can't wait to see the
I
next
love
one.
the slap. I love the slap on page 19 or whatever.
Yeah.
Just like running over all the carbon, metal, whatever this
spikes,
rain of stuff is, spikes or whatever, and then just slaps him. You know, and he still has the hand out on page 21. He's like hand. I just slapped you.
With the smoke coming off of it too, he smacked the fuck out this man.
Slapped him like he was trying to cook a chicken. Okay, I was worried you guys wouldn't know about that joke.
Oh shit! I'm good on MASH though this week. I don't know if you guys have any more.
Yeah, me too.
Oh, solid chapter.
Hell yeah.
Well, with that, I think we can go ahead and get right into chapter 295 of Black Clover rematch. And
color page,
I don't
color
know,
spread, fire.
as I said in my live reaction stream earlier, this color page to me has death flags for Yami all over it.
Yeah, look at him.
Big death flags. Yeah,
look at his ass.
All in funeral attire, and he's the only one that's not like shown facing the fucking front.
If this really is foreshadowing for that plot point, I'm kind of mad at Tabata for making it so obvious because like that's literally like what everyone has said about this fucking color page so far, and it's like I don't want to know that Yami died in a fucking color spread. So
to a certain degree, though, like I kind of feel like if he does die, this was Tabata being like, "All right, guys, I'm actually gonna do it this time. I need you to understand.
Yeah, like this is here. I'm committing. It's in the color spread."
Yami fans, don't be mad that we don't Julius this one. Which that comment about Yami fans was aimed at myself.
It's me. I'm Nickus.
The only other thing I can think of with this Yami turned away from us is that everyone else is working together to save him, right?
Sure.
Like he's incapacitated. Everyone else is fighting, right? So maybe that's how it is. I don't know.
Yeah.
I like that. That's tight.
But the all black funeral attire seems crazy.
Yes.
Look, this is a series that has saved enough lives and like kept enough people out of death. Where, as far as I'm concerned, Yami doesn't need to die. Take out vengeance.
Yeah,
I didn't want him to live. All of this is like borrowed time, as far as I'm concerned, for vengeance.
Right.
I agree with you.
Another thing I noticed in this color spread is Asta's right hand is black, from that contract.
Yeah,
where he gave his armor away.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
That's tight. I hope that stays forever because he looks cool.
On his shoulder.
Yeah, he does. Look at him,
Liebe.
little cute little chibi Liebe.
Mm-hmm.
Chibi.
Right back into this action, this Noelle and Vanica action.
I didn't get a chance last week to talk about like how tight it was that Vanica was talking all that shit at the end of the last chapter, and then fucking Gaja and Noelle come in like literally at like Mach 3, but Vanica's still ready and catches the fucking spear with no reaction time at all. I thought that was fucking sick.
Mm-hmm. For sure.
Yeah, Vanica, it's good action.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
What were you gonna say, Eagle?
I was just gonna say I'm loving Noelle's vibes in this chapter, man. She's not fucking playing around.
Yeah.
Certain panels, her shading and the intensity in her eyes just really stands out.
Absolutely. Yeah. Tabata drew the shit out of this chapter, especially the Noelle panels for sure.
On page 15 on the bottom, you can really fucking see it. Like, she is not playing around right now.
Yeah, that's a great panel there. I love the way that Tabata and the panel above that with Lolo Pachika crying. I love the way he uses like the screen tones as like the shading beneath the whatever that writing is for the curse magic that's consuming or whatever. I've always loved that effect.
I also like
that does that. Yeah.
the glowing, like from like the pure spirit energy, like forming around Noelle. Like so, like that since he's got the armor, like that emphasizes the darkness in her eyes to reflect the anger. Whereas the demonic energy is just like pure, all-encompassing and chaotic on the like to the right when you look at the other page with
love that
yeah, art outside of the art, I don't know, the writing of the chapter is like something that I'm not the biggest fan of throughout the chapter. I think that Vanika's dialogue is very I don't know, I'm going to use the word cringy because that's literally like what I felt as I read the chapter. I feel like Vanika shouting about how strong Noelle is and getting stronger and fighting her, it just feels very it just doesn't.
That's what she's been on the whole time.
That is what she's been on the whole time. Exactly. It isn't anything new, but I guess my point is like, why are we not exploring this character any deeper than just shouting about how strong people are? I think that like at this point in the game, and I understand, look, okay, if you don't want if the triads aren't going to get any more depth because they're not like the final villain of this arc or whatever, and you're going to give that to Morris or whatever, it's like we still have to deal with these characters on the screen in the meantime from week to week. And Vanika and Dante feel like fucking Powerpuff Girls villains to me. And it's like if you're not going to be the main villain, whatever, but I mean, you are getting a lot of screen time to do like really shallow things and have really shallow dialogue, you know what I mean? I understand it's a big war and everybody is fighting and whatnot, but I mean, like, shonen stories have been able to characterize and write, deeper characters in the midst of conflict, in the midst of high action. Like, we see that all the time. So I guess that's just something that I want. I guess I don't know.
Clover. I always took Xenon the most seriously. Dante you kind of take seriously at first, but then you find out he's just kind of unhinged and crazy at times when he's actually getting his ass whooped.
Yeah.
Xenon's calm and collected, calculated.
Yeah.
I always saw Vanika as just that type of character who's just batshit crazy, like loves fighting powerful people, and I don't know.
That was really cool at first. I remember like when she first came out, I made a comment like in our review about how it's tight that a female character has that like radical survival of the fittest outlook. You don't usually see that in like female antagonists, but then like nothing more was done with that. The character was not explored literally anymore, and she's been around for who knows how many chapters now. And obviously she was out of the story during all the Dante stuff, but it's like Dante gets introduced and he has this amazing screen presence and then is very underwhelming as a villain and as a character in general, and gets whooped multiple times with no depth added to his character. And it's like, when are we going to get this pathos? Why is Tabata hanging on to the depth or the flashback, like whatever more we can get for these characters? I'm sure it's coming. And I was talking about it in a group chat a little bit earlier with some people about how I do believe that the Dark Triad, flashback and depth is coming. But in the meantime, it's like, this is like a really high level conflict that we have going on right now. And all it is fighting. And that we're getting, characterization for Noelle. She's getting fleshed out more. She's getting progression. Asta and all of the main cast is doing just fine, in my opinion. But when it comes to this antagonistic force of just being walls of energy and anger, it's like I personally am expecting more from a conflict of this level narrative.
I think it has something to do with the fact that the theme of the Dante fight directly ties in with like classism and like looking down on people, all these other things. Like there's like a whole like real like social narrative. Like there's like a little extra meat to it. And then like when you see like the Magne fight, so like we're coming down like, and like the Magne fight, like I was like in the same GC we were discussing, was probably like the best classism like discrimination chapter in DC.
Yeah, I loved it.
So we're coming down from one of like a really good moment, and like this fight is more about friendship and relationships, and so it's like, all right, cool, yeah, like Undines and like Noelle are friends and they care about Lola Pachica and all this other stuff, but it's like, okay, but like this doesn't do a lot for like the overall plot, so it feels weird that they're having like this like friendship fight at this point in the series, like like in the story, where it feels like almost like, okay, but like shouldn't we be like getting more explanations on some other stuff? And like this is like an interesting, like it's an interesting step in like the combat system where it's like the spirits can consciously make a choice to like go partner up with somebody just to like go help somebody else, and like they can have these temporary contracts and all that other stuff, like it seems to imply with Noelle. Like that's fascinating, like, but it's like it's weird that like it doesn't feel like it actually does a lot. It just seems like a cool like info dump, and then like we're just like, yeah, like we have like something to make a more raw fight.
Right.
Like,
and it just feels like Tabata is just like adding new concepts instead of, I don't know, like it's whenever there's like a turning point in conflict, it's because a new spell or a new concept is like being introduced in that pivotal moment. And it's like, you can do that a bunch. I love concepts, you know what I mean? But I mean, like, take the time to actually flesh them out and like take some time with your audience to get the idea across of what these concepts do and how they work. It's like, sure, you probably go back and find screenshots and put the puzzle together, but it's like, you got to rehash information, you know, like, as the story goes on, so that we can fucking like have a better idea of the phenomenon we're fucking reading about. I don't know, and maybe it's just because of
that's also why the Zora Magna thing was like super cool for me.
Yeah,
because like they talk about like, yeah, training spells like create spells, but a lot of the time it's like when Yami gets Dark Dimension Slash, it's like, I need to get out of this space. I now have the ability to cut through space.
Right.
Like with Valkyrie Dress, like we had practiced Mana Skin, but she technically hadn't practiced Valkyrie Dress like that spell.
Yeah.
It just like unlocked and was like, you know, like a crisis spell.
Yeah.
And so like we knew that Zora had some cool spells and like configurations, but like we had never really talked about him like actually meticulously crafting all these like small little glyphs to make them.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was like, cool, we're finally getting like actual hard work to create spells and having that be relevant.
Yeah.
Whereas almost every other time it's been like, yes, people have trained, but boom.
Yeah,
like
here
they
it
get
is.
this stuff, like here it is, like no extra story attached to it. It's just like, I'm here to whoop your ass now, and here's another form.
And I feel like we just started like delving into the idea of like actually like showing characters learning and training spells like this Spade art. So like it's cool that we have it now, but like that whole entire idea I feel like is coming late. And at the same time that it's coming late, Tabata is dumping more concepts on the table in like times of like high stakes conflict. So it's like it just feels messy. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then
this like Saint Sage ability, I think they do a good job of like explaining how technically Undyne explains how, yes, it makes sense that no one knows about this because she knew about it and she purposely decided because she loves Lola Pachika so much that I'm just not going to tell anyone else about this Saint Sage thing, right? But like how I don't know, trivial and convenient. It's just lazy, I think, like here's a new ability that's just going to fuck up the devils.
Yeah.
So
hard counter
out of nowhere.
Hard counter.
Hard counter. Brand new.
Okay. So here's I will defend Tabata on this in the sense that it is like the logical conclusion, right? Like we've had these spirits,
sure.
we like so like to a certain degree.
We've been
it's
looking
like,
for that win condition. We've been asking ourselves, how do they win? Yeah.
Right. Like so, like it like makes sense. Like okay, there has to be like a holy something, and so it's kind of nice that like this is directly a result of spirits that we've seen in the story. For a good chunk of the story, at least.
But this is information that you lead into. This is not information that you just turn the page into.
But when we have series like JJK, where, and I like one of my favorite things is when you get that like that box, and it's like a fourth grade, you could use like a baseball bat, like a pistol, shotgun, like. And then like you for the most part like adhere to it, or like in like okay, we kind of just do a bunch of special grades now for JJK, but like you know like but like when you set it aside, like if you introduce this system, then like with Magna for example, it was like okay, he's like a 5th level mage, and then like that's just too low, so he had to like find a workaround. Right. It's like you didn't have to hide Saint Sage from us. In fact, you could have like put like a nebulous tier above like in a graphic, and that alone would have been monumental, especially because like you had like the suggestion with like he's dark tier with Asta, like back
arcane stage was it?
Yeah, it was like arcane or dark arcane or something like that, and it was like okay, so we know that there's something extra special. So then it just would have been like okay, Saint tier goes with dark tier, boom, or whatever it was. Like all right, we got it, thanks. Like it didn't matter, like that secret didn't matter too much. All that mattered is how we got there. Right. Sure. And then like so holding that secret would have helped a lot, like if we just would have known. Okay, Saint is a thing. we don't know how you get it, but we know it's a thing. And then, because most people probably would have been like, oh, it's about being loved by the mana so much and becoming a sage and da-da-da-da. Like, that's probably how a lot of people would have taken it. And then it would have been like, oh, no, it's about being chosen by the spirits. And then you're like, oh, that means that can become a saint too.
Yeah.
And that's how, like, both him and Asta get to stay on the same level, because Asta gets to keep leveling up his contract with the anti-magic devil, and, you know, he gets to become the ultimate saint.
I just think that more
So
prep
what do you
work
guys think
could've-
about this?
Yeah.
When we got the explanation on the stages of mages,
hmm
you know, stage 0, whatever arcane stage, it was from Lolo Pechka, right?
Correct.
Or Gaja.
One of
So it
those.
would
I
make
think it was
sense
both of
following the
them.
lines
Yeah.
that she doesn't even know about it.
Sure.
She
Sure.
couldn't tell them it's a
And
thing.
that
I mean,
feels
there
great.
could have been an instance in the story where we could have known earlier,
Yeah.
but it makes sense in this instance where Lolo Pechka explaining it to him wouldn't tell them about it because she has no idea it exists.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And that's fine. That all feels great. I love that, what you just said, but at the end of the day, like when it comes down to execution and how you're going to tell your story
Right.
to the audience, it's like I feel like there could have been a little bit more prep work personally, you know, leading into this information. You know what I mean? And if you can tie it back and make it make sense in your story and in your narrative after the fact, whatever, Black Clover isn't breaking any of its own rules with what it's doing right now, but it just
Mhm.
feels underwhelming to me. It's in its execution, because it does feel very out of nowhere, very page turn, hand wavy, you know, explanations that barely make enough sense to get us through the chapter without there being such an obvious break in continuity. But like it does feel very messy, you know what I mean?
I do have an example of that.
Structurally, you know.
I do have an example of that from the One Piece chapter that's coming up that I think I like have an idea of like what is being gone for here, but it's very much in the same realm as this, where it's kind of like that can technically potentially work, but you probably should have done more with that.
What I appreciate inside of like series like Jujutsu Kaisen, when you made it a comparison to talking about like the grades and how like what it takes to defeat a grade, baseball bat, shotgun, grenades, and then after we got that explanation, it was just special grade time. I do agree that is kind of awkward, but at the same time, in comparison to all the other concepts in Jujutsu Kaisen, there's so much more structure surrounding like all the other explanations that we get for phenomenon, that like an example like that I feel like isn't too drastic for the continuity. But then inside of things like Black Clover, where it's like things feel messy in multiple areas, and you know, you can find a connecting line, but it's that connecting line I feel like should be more apparent. It should be, you know, like Tabata should spend more time to develop, you know, concepts and rehash the information and make sure that at the base level we have a good understanding of how magic works and why people are able to do the things that they're doing. Not so much here's the story, here's things happening, here's, you know, explanations that we throw in later that like make, you know, other things from before make sense. Like I just want it to make sense at first and then add like, okay, is this flying off the rails? Oh no, you're tying it back. Whereas this just feels just messy in general, and then Tabata kind of cleans it up later. I don't like that feeling or that dynamic. I prefer it to feel
because it feels like he has these ideas sitting in the chamber, and then but he's like focused, like he's like he tries to be like really focused on like the story. Like I never feel like, oh, Black Clover's like doing way too much this chapter, like it's all over the place, like focused up. Like I never get that feeling. Like Black Clover usually does a good job of being focused, and I think it's just a case of like sometimes he's so focused that it's like you actually do need to dawdle a little bit to spend like a little extra time talking about this or that every now and then, just because it like helps. Like I like talk about the dwarves some more, man.
Yeah.
Like,
I don't know, dude. And it's just like Vanica. It's like this chapter looks beautiful, but it's like I just can't get over fucking Vanica's like Scooby-Doo villain dialogue. It's like this is such a big like we know that like this is the kind of character she is. She's psycho. Tabata is just gonna lean into that and just do base level Vanica dialogue while we have amazing growth coming out of, you know, Noelle, and we're getting more development for Lolo Pechika and Undine, and like all of this stuff is happening in the midst of the conflict. But then here's Vanica. Come on, you attack me too, then you'll both feel good. Let's enjoy ourselves. So, you know, someone, you know, like it's just like you better show me. Like I'm not gonna give you, you know, I'm not gonna forgive you if you let this if you let me be bored in this fight, it's just like very like flat dialogue while there's deeper dialogue happening around her. And it's like you couldn't give us like anything to deepen Vanika's like character during all of this, at least.
It's because they're talking, but they're not having a conversation.
Yes.
She's a
That's a great way to put it.
Sure, yeah. They're
So it's
just
like
saying words.
If Noelle was like, understand that the power that I've been honing with like Undine is exactly what's gonna crush you, and then she was like, oh, that sounds exciting. I'm looking forward to you attempting to do that. But it's just like, no, like, do this, have fun. And then she's just like, bitch, listen, bitch, I'm gonna kill you now. And I'm like, it's like, a little more interaction would have been like nice.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's like they both monologued at each other.
Yeah. One thing I did like about this chapter was in the flashback when Undine was kind of explaining how Lola Pachika can't learn attack spells, right? Like it's just her personality. She doesn't do attack spells.
Yeah.
And then going forward in the chapter where Vanica is forcing her through the curse to do attacks.
Yes.
And she's like crying because of it, right?
Yeah.
Like being forced to do something against her nature. I thought that was like, that fits very well.
Fire.
Nicely
Love that.
executed there.
Yeah, absolutely. That is a point that I also liked in the chapter as well. And I feel like Black Clover has been giving us chapters that we haven't had too much to complain about for a while. You know what I mean? And I'm happy with what is happening inside of Black Clover generally. But there are just sometimes where these chapters come and it really just reminds me of the things that I'm not a big fan of inside of Black Clover. So I hope I don't sound like too much of a hater. This is just one that like really fell flat for me in more areas than it has in recent times. You know what I mean? But I mean, that doesn't take away from my overall enjoyment of this arc up until this point. You know what I mean? Like it's just little personal Tabata fumbles for me. You know what I mean? Like that are just probably always going to be there because that's the kind of story that he's trying to tell. So, but overall, this was a brilliant chapter for a lot of reasons.
Yeah, I mean, like I thought the explanation of why, like I mentioned before, like the why Saint Sage has been hidden. Like I guess it makes some sense. I do think it's kind of like out of nowhere, but at least it's consistent. Like yes, she did know about it and purposely decided not to tell people and feels bad about it, right? She's like, damn, I might have made a mistake that I didn't tell people about this ability. Maybe we could have been already killing the devils if we had known about this, right? And obviously the art slaps. I mean, like this last double spread of the Saint Valkyrie armor, like goddamn, okay, like very good.
Yeah, very well drawn.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
The wings.
So Spirit
There's
Dive.
like a lot of presence. Yeah.
So now we know Fuego Leon's gonna get one of these. That's pretty cool to think about.
Which
I mean,
is to be dragon themed.
Yeah, but I mean, like
how
everybody.
are they gonna get them? Like just
sure.
unlock them through stress, and I need to go plus ultra or whatever. Like,
The explanation.
Get a train for this.
If you think about it, Yuno's already shown 2 of them.
So we're assuming that like Yuno already does this basically.
He has armor fusion.
Yeah, he has. We have seen I think the first Spirit Dive we saw was Yuno, wasn't it, at the beginning of this?
Yeah, it was in Royal Knights.
Beginning of this raid, or sure.
Yeah, because he does. Yeah, like he has one like that first form is like the start of like the Spirit Dive, and then he completes it eventually.
Yeah,
and then that's the one that's got like the rapier, and then he's got the Boreas one, which has the halberd now. So
yep. So that's like kind of where we first saw it, and then Noelle obviously has her Spirit Dive, but it's all inside of like Spirit users. You know what I mean? So Fuego Leon we know has the Salamanders, so probably going to see a Spirit Dive from him, which is exciting.
We got to see one from him, especially like the dude's been creating a firearm, like his like magic like is part of his everyday life now, like, to a degree that like it is not for like a lot of these characters. Like come on,
this is like an area that he literally can't turn it off on his arm. You know what I mean? Like that is fire is his arm. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Well, shit, I think that about does it for Black Clover, I guess.
Yeah, I'm good.
Yeah.
Well, with that, I think we can go ahead and get right into chapter 315 of My Hero Academia, Platitudes. What's up, man? I like
So I'm gonna be honest, this chapter like for me was I was like, okay, this is a good payoff. This is a good payoff. Glad to understand this mechanic. All right, this is what this is for. Like, a lot of what this encounter has been about is exactly like it kind of like solidified like All For One is like the threat that like he is and always has been, like the big brain aspects of All For One. I feel like a lot of times people thought that like, oh, like Deku getting all these quirks is gonna make him like just be a meathead about it.
Oh no.
And it's like no, like now that Deku has all these quirks, we're seeing like just how many different thoughts are like going into each of these fights.
Yeah.
And like the way he has to like use certain powers, and like Fa Jin, let me tell you, the way Fa Jin works is actually kind of how I imagined One For All worked. So yeah, because like there's a couple mechanics like in the description that I always thought about. I was like, it stockpiles power, and I was like, well, what does that mean? Like, like what's the power that you're stockpiling? Is it kinetic energy? Is it like what is it? And I was like, all right, so then like it could be that just by existing with One For All, to me it was like, oh, if you were just like moving, it's just like stockpiles all the released energy just by existing, every breath, every move, da 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 da. Like that's kind of like how I was like looking at it. But like that's kind of what Fa Jin is actually. So like if you turned it on throughout like the entirety of your body, you would act like for your exhales, inhales, all of that would be slowly charging.
Yeah, the Fa Jin.
And then you get to release it however you want to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we were talking last week, I feel like, Eagle and I, about like if All Might is kind of unconsciously using Fa Jin, because like when he does like, you know, Detroit Smash or whatever, right? Like it's not the power of 9 people or 8 people in his case, right? Like it's way more than 8 people. So it's as if more was charged up than just inheriting one person's strength, you know what I mean?
Oh,
so
sure.
in that way, like I think you totally could be onto something with that, Aniki, for sure.
Oh yeah.
My original theory with One For All was that it was like multiple quirks. Like when I like first encountered One For All, and like, you know, All Might was like, oh, you know, it passes down, like one quirk gets passed on to another, and I was like, well, if he's shouldn't it like latch onto those quirks if they like combined with that quirk?
Oh, damn.
So I was always like, wait, shouldn't then pass on all the other quirks? So then wouldn't that make it like a We Love Katamari ball of quirks? And so like it ended up being that like, yeah, like Deku did eventually get, you know, all these quirks. It's just that like All Might theoretically wasn't using it, but I always just thought like that's what I immediately thought the secret was going to be, like All Might has multiple quirks. And it was like,
and like the misdirection of All Might having not had a quirk, and you're like, oh, okay, that makes sense. Like no quirk or whatever. Like, but it's like, okay, what about the predecessors though? Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, I love the forethought that Kohei had on this idea of giving his main character multiple quirks in a story where people only have one, and like everything is based on like how strong you are with one quirk in relation to other people with one quirk, and then you give your main character a bunch of quirks. That was really scary, you know, for a lot of people, myself included, when we first saw Black Whip and this concept, you know, first started kind of getting fleshed out. And I'm sure a lot of people thought that, you know, what a fully realized Deku with all these quirks was going to look like was literally just spamming quirk abilities and getting through all of these conflicts with just a bunch of moves. You know what I mean? But I love how Kohei brings it down to go, okay, what would it actually mean in this world, given our understanding of quirks as an energy system, for someone to have multiple? And he spends a lot of time, you know, focusing on the detriments of this, so that there are a bunch of caveats in place that make this growth in strength feel earned and satisfying, and not just hand wavy Black Whip into float, into Fa Jin, into, you know, into One For All, boom, 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 back to back, with no, you know, dialogue dedicated to what it's actually doing to Deku on the level that it is. Sure, you could just say, oh, all of my muscles are working and I'm exhausted now, but then you can just up Deku's stamina to get him through whatever, you know, situation he needs, and that wouldn't be good enough. Sure, oh, all we know is that Deku's just really tired now after winning the fight with all of his quirks, you know what I mean? Like, no, you need this dialogue about parallel quirk processes. You need this dialogue about how he didn't have enough RAM, essentially, to do what he was trying to do, you know what I mean? And it makes this increase in capabilities feel really good, you know what I mean? And it's just like future thinking from Kohei in that way, to know that people would complain about this if it's not executed properly. And we have expectation shattering, depth that's been put into this. You know what I mean?
So there's two things that I want to touch on with that, especially now.
Yeah.
One of them being that, like, we were kind of talking about how in almost every shonen manga, every series, it's like, all right, the MC is eventually going to be like top tier, super elite, clear of a bunch of people. Like, it feels like an inevitability. Like over in One Piece, we're looking at this. We're like, yeah, I think we're hitting Admiral level. We're hitting Admiral level post Wano. Like, we got that whole discussion on the table now. Like Ichigo ends up way above plenty of people. Like, it's always known, and like it's usually what people are mad about. It's like, they became like so much more powerful, and they got all these abilities, and like Horikoshi has been like, all right, I'm gonna give him the abilities before we get to like the end of stuff.
Yes.
And you're going to see him struggle with using them so that even though he's stronger than all these people, you'll at least have actually seen him practice with these abilities and
See
learn
him
how
fail
to
with
use
them. Yeah.
Right.
Failure is the biggest one to me. But yeah, go ahead. Keep going.
But the other thing is the reason he got Black Whip first is because of all these quirks, all of them have lower skill floors than Black Whip.
Oh, sure.
You can just like float in one place. All right, cool. That's basically the equivalent of like him just activating full cowling. That's why, like, when he wasn't using Fajin, but he was using Float, Black Whip, and Smoke, it wasn't an issue because Smoke is just, just let full cowling be on and let it roll off your body.
Right.
Float is, staying in there. So, like, when he's doing, like, pinpoint Black Whip, that's that shape manipulation, that same, spreading one for all throughout your body. But now he's, like, learned to spread it at a distance already.
Correct.
So he's been, like, distributing that energy through the air, essentially. So it's like he practiced Black Whip, and that foundation builds on all these other ones, which is like, then when you think about it, Fajin takes you back to like the original way he was using One for All to a certain degree, where he was, like going like 5% smash in my right hand, and now he's like, if I throw like 6 jabs, I can throw like a 100%, like a fake 100% smash, which might actually be how he took out Muscular, because you had that little streak when he like took him out during the fight, and we didn't talk about it, but that's also because that hadn't been revealed yet, like how Fajin works.
Sure.
We just saw him like one shot Muscular. But
nice. That could be a retroactive explanation for the conclusion of that fight. Yeah, absolutely. That's tight.
Yeah,
that's super tight.
It also makes it where like Deku using Black Whip for centrifugal force, like this Fajin thing, this is way better in my opinion than him actually just getting 100%.
Right.
Because now he still has to move around. He still has to, like, there's like a wind up to it. There's build up.
Yep.
So it gives more openings for his opponents to respond.
Absolutely.
Right. I love the art on the 6-7 double spread of the foe 100% or whatever.
Yeah.
Where the first panel, the top panel, I love like seeing like the raindrops like solid in time, right?
Yeah.
Just one frame. And then like boom, right in there, like oh man, looks so good.
The bullet like literally right in front of his face.
Yeah.
Deku still beats it. Like that shit.
So gas. And the way that it's shown from the top panel to the bottom panel is just like something that I feel like hits so much harder in this medium, right?
Yes.
Because like in the anime, you know what I mean? Like this will probably look great or whatever. But as far as it just being super still and then time going back to normal underneath it, showing that in like one frame to the next frame in the way that the manga medium can, I feel like makes it a little bit more impactful potentially than when we'll see it in the anime. Who knows? But I just love what the manga medium can do visually.
Yes.
Yeah.
The other cool thing about the bottom panel is the streaking on Deku's face. If you look back to the previous chapters, especially like the one before this one, there's actually multiple panels where it's like a little small, but his face streaks the same way. And it's him basically using the Fajin in those scenarios too.
Word.
So there's like random, like, so when she's freaking out, like, like when she goes to aim at Overhaul in the first place and she's freaking out about his speed, you can actually see Deku's face streak at a certain point during that interaction.
Yeah.
Nice.
Nice. Yeah. Eagle, I think you were trying to
say
something.
The anime is going to do this beautifully though. He's going to be like yelling, and then it's just going to be like
a slow-mo.
Yeah. The bullet's going to be right there.
Yeah.
It's going to be like
like
that would be tight. I can see it for sure.
Hell yeah.
I like that we get more about Lady Nagant or whatever, like in the beginning of the chapter, like her beefing up the rifle. And I even love the internal monologue of like this puts me at risk of jamming, but I gotta up my shot velocity, right? I love that shit.
Yes.
The thing I love the most is on page 3. We get a great angle of her using the technique where we've known for some chapters now that she's, the rifle's coming out of her elbow rather.
Yeah.
But it's like, okay, but how do you put a bullet into the gun? And she's literally doing that in that panel.
Yeah.
She has a bullet in her left hand and she's passing it to her right hand.
Yeah.
And the hand's just gonna like close around the bullet and like it's in the gun, quote unquote. I love that. It looks great.
Okay.
Yeah. Fire.
So cool detail. Remember when I mentioned the cult stuff and all that other?
Yeah.
Sure.
So part of the League of Villains and like all this other bases has been on like the Shinrikyo massive cult, did huge terrorist attack in Japan in '95, like injured like 5,000 people, killed like 13 on the day. We don't know how many people died overall from extra complications, but they did a lot of weapons deals with like leftover Soviets and like got a lot of weapons from them. They specifically got like a Mosin Nagant rifle, which is where her name comes from, which is like it's a Russian rifle.
Yep.
It's a bolt action rifle, hence why she has to do the feeding into her hand. It's also why last week, if you look back at like page 13 or something, if you notice there's exactly 5 bullets being used to separate the panels. And that's because the Mosin Nagant rifle has a 5 magazine like maximum.
Wait! In this chapter?
In the previous chapter.
Oh shit!
So he's been like adherent. They also one of the things they did is they made it a point to buy an attack helicopter from the Russians, and that's part of why you have this lady with a sniper rifle that's up par with like actual military vehicle guns. Yeah. But she also was given airwalk. And then if you remember, that's why it's like high mobile like high power cannon or whatever is like the name of the chapter. Yeah. It's another play on that, like that she's basically an allusion to old war dealings or.
That's tight. Yeah, I remember Eagle pointed out in the first chapter that we got Nagant that the rifle was an old World War II like Russian bolt action rifle. I remember.
And what lends even more to like just the story behind the rifle and shit is that there's a World War II story about a really famous female sniper who like put in a lot of work with the Mosin Nagant type shit.
Ooh shit! I thought you were gonna bring up fucking Samo Hayaha, the White Death, the Japanese sniper that fucking killed like 100 people in like one session on a perch or something. I can't remember his whole history, but that's where I thought you were going with that. But I don't even remember what time period that dude's from off the top of my head. But But now I kind of want to like look into. Do you got a name for that female sniper?
I mean, not off the top of my head. And
she was Japanese?
Talk about it later. No, it was Russian.
Russian. I'm just gonna. Anyway, back to the chapter.
Yeah.
But
so, one thing I want to know is how'd you guys feel about her finally getting that handshake she wanted?
Yeah, dude. Fuck yeah.
Oh man. Okay. Nice one. I didn't catch that one. That's very good.
Yeah.
I really like that. Nice. Very nice. Page 13, like as Deku is reaching out to save her, to grab her hand or whatever, like her bloody hand. She's doing the handshake that she would have with a bloody hand as she was from her perspective with the little kids last chapter. Oh man. Nice. Thank you.
That's actually the thumbnail is I've already made it. It's that it's that panel from last week of her with the hand out, and then right next to it is this panel of the hand connection.
Nice. No, I didn't pick up on that. That's very awesome. Thank you.
It's so sick.
Like, well, the other thing though is at the end of the chapter, did you notice that it looks like her face is just gone?
Yeah, dude, I can't believe All For One blew her up, bro. And it's just stark black in the face.
Yeah, like
that could imply not that it's gone, but that it's so disfigured you can't draw it. You know what I mean? Like kind of a censorship, self-censorship to prevent gore. But I agree. Like the bomb came out of her face, right? Like on page 15, cracks in her face. That's where it kind of started. It could not be there. It could just be gone. Yeah.
Reminded me of The Boys. Oh fuck.
Oh yeah.
Motherfuckers just getting their heads exploded randomly by old girl. Oh man.
The season 2 like finished especially. I was like, oh
yeah.
So that's what it is.
Yeah, I was like, no. Okay, spoilers for The Boys. Obviously, we've already said
Lyudmila Pavlichenko.
Oh, so you did look it up.
Is the name of the female sniper. famous for the story of in battle, a comrade died next to her and handed, as he is dying, her his Mosin Nagant model 1891 bolt-action rifle, and then she picked it up and shot her first 2 enemies with it.
Fuck yeah.
Yo.
And
Nice.
she is actually a very famous sniper who was credited with 309 confirmed kills in World War II, making her the most successful female sniper in recorded history.
Damn.
Boss. Beast.
Nicknamed Lady Death for her incredible
Oh,
ability
yeah.
with a sniper rifle.
Okay.
Oh,
Full
yeah.
circle.
Full
Yep,
circle.
Yep. Okay. Yep.
Incredible.
Yep. Leading the gun. Boom.
Hell yeah.
So,
fire.
in terms of the explosion of All for One, right? Something let me know your opinion on this, right? But on the last page where All for One says, to the very end, you were just a tool to be used. Curse your blessing of a quirk if you must. Do you think this failure clause that he put into her, did he take her quirk and super overcharge it? Because her quirk makes bullets, you know what I mean, and a gun.
Yeah.
So it makes explosions.
Yeah.
And did he use her quirk to blow her up?
Oh,
He
shit.
said, "Curse your blessing of a quirk."
I think that when I read that dialogue, curse your blessing of a quirk if you must, I think it was because you were born with such a tight quirk that I wanted you in the first place because of it. So you were selected by me because your quirk is so tight. And I put this failure clause in case you went soft. So like you basically had to die right now because your quirk was so awesome. Because I was probably always going to blow you up, maybe. Who knows?
I mean,
Also,
right before that, he says to the very end, you were just a tool to be used.
Right.
Curse your blessing of a quirk if you want, because she had a cold ass quirk for like assassination. Everybody just used her as a tool.
Right.
You know.
You also got to factor in something important. The original translation for quirk isn't quirk. It's individuality.
I think I remember that actually.
So it's curse your blessing of an individuality.
Okay.
So like anytime, like sometimes when you have these lines, it's important to like every now and then just swap that in.
Okay.
Because he's basically saying like the thing that makes you you is the thing you need to resent most.
Sure. Gotcha.
And to us, like you mentioned though, like because she was literally like born a sniper rifle, she was, and like that's what they said, she was basically a rifle in human form. Even that verbiage kind of lends towards the idea of her just being a tool.
Yeah.
Right. Yep.
But what I did like is that as soon as we started getting any explanations on her, I was like, oh yeah, she's disillusioned. She's not actually an evil person.
Right.
So I didn't expect her to like keep riding for AFO. And it wouldn't even make sense for her to, because like the same reasons that she had doubts are the same reasons why she was even willing to do what she was willing to do for the Hero Commission in the first place, which is that she did want society to be better. It's just that she was willing to try their way because they got her when she was a young kid and like convinced her that that was going to be like an ideal way to do it.
Nice.
God damn.
Overhaul.
Yeah. Overhaul. How do we
So
feel?
I'm looking at this as he probably wants to try to negotiate. Like he's been introduced here specifically to try to negotiate with Deku for something. Whether it's can you please have Ares save the boss? That's all that matters. And Deku, because like Deku was like, I know it's Uchisaki, which is something that even she was like, wait, he recognized who that was and still saves him and like broke my arm.
Yeah.
All right. So it's like, he's going to talk to him. He fully intends to talk to him.
Yep.
And I think he's especially going to be willing to hear him if Nagant dies. Because one of the things that I kind of thought like Deku had to experience as another thing to set him apart from All Might is that they directly tell you nobody's ever died if like All Might was there. Like,
Right.
If Nagant dies here, she died basically in his hand.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so like that's how you get that confronting failure really, really hard, like point blank in the moment. You were right there. Moment for Deku.
Oh shit. Yeah, that makes it yeah, Nagant's dead. She's out of here.
Especially since she said on page 4, or starting on page 3, she says, your hero education taught you to hate one thing above all else, no matter who the victim is. if your own screw up gets him killed, that'll really keep you up at night. Wouldn't it be poetic in a sad way if she says that phrase and then dies because Deku couldn't save her?
Yeah,
you know what
she was meaning it for Chisaki.
Right, but it came to her.
But it came to her. Oh, fuck. She's dead.
She's dead.
She's dead as fuck, bro. Oh, no.
The other thing is that if you remember what Gran Torino said, which is that like killing is another form of saving people. Ultimately, Nagant killed the president of the Hero Commission. So there's no saving her in the eyes of the public.
Right.
If they like reestablish society, they're still gonna want her back in prison. They're still gonna be like, well, you killed the president of the Hero Commission. That's still a really big deal.
Right.
That might even be worse to most people than her killing a hero.
Right.
So it's like, in that way, that life has been ruined. So she can't go back to being a hero. She doesn't actually really want to be or belong in the world of villains. So there's no place for her in this world. She's hit the point of being like obsolete.
Nobody really even knows about that though, right? Like they covered that up.
Or she was in prison for that.
Yeah.
Right. So she's a well-documented escaped Tartarus prisoner.
That's right.
Right.
So it's like,
they'll ask why you were in there.
As far as the public though, nobody knows she was in there or why.
I agree with Ani here. Like, she can't reintegrate into society because everyone knows she escaped from Tartarus. There's going to be reporters being like, but why were you in Tartarus in the first place? And it's going to come up. Like, they can't hide it forever.
True.
Well, no, if you remember, Deku even said, you killed a hero. So there was already a story, at least.
Oh, sure, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So it's like, the only story to clear her name is to tell them an even worse story of, I killed the president of a government agency.
Right.
So she's like, she's just like kind of screwed.
Yeah.
So there's no place for her in this world. Which is also kind of fitting because the most Nagant rifle is kind of phased out now.
Damn, too much full circling.
And so then, like, Deku in this case, kind of to piggyback off what you're saying, Aniki, like, he saved her, but just her. You know, he saved her thought of being a hero, right? She did at the end decide, like, yeah, like maybe I should be good, right?
Yeah.
Saved her soul in a way, right? Like, you know, she's self-pure. Now she's dead. She's not saved in the objective, you know, continuing to live sense.
Yeah.
But her soul as a hero was saved.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, going back into like
the only way it could be.
Going back into like the title, you know, of the chapter,
Platitudes.
I think is Platitudes, right? And we always like see, you know, this kind of character, Stain, Shigaraki, Nagant, they all, you know, are sick of these platitudes, of these played out, these trite moral, you know, statements that everyone wants to make because that's the way that people think that the world should be. But characters like Nagant and Stain and Shigaraki know that people have no idea how to bring the world to the point that they want, and whatever kind of society that they've kind of established so far that is kind of, you know, creating this outlook or this view of the world in this moral light is not working. They know that it's not. They know that people have no idea how to achieve the goals that they want, and they're tired of people fucking talking about it. And that is like goes into a lot of the motivations that we see inside of Stain, Shigaraki, and Lady Nagant. But then as soon as you have this real confrontation with Izuku Midoriya where these ideals clash, Midoriya is always going to win out and is going to kind of liberate them from that feeling of we like the wheels are spinning in society and that we don't know where we know what we want, but we don't know how to get there. And in the meantime, things are shitty and people are ignoring it because there's this veil over society that heroes are keeping things in check. Well, they're really not. That's apparent not just to these villains that have been talking about it from the beginning of the series, but now it's apparent to society at large, and even more so to the audience that has been reading this story for so long. So it's great to see that Midoriya can break through that outlook that Nagant and Stain and Shigaraki to a certain degree kind of hold, because now it's going to make these moments feel better when Midoriya does get through to Shigaraki or Midoriya does get through to Chisaki. We see what happens when the ideals clash and it actually works, because Nagant right here is like, Izuku Midoriya, after all of these things that have been written into my characterization and into my internal monologues and into my development, is now shattering because I've met a real hero who actually knows what he wants for the future of society and can actually bring us to the point that all of these platitudes are being spoken for in the first place. And that is a very this panel where her face is kind of like cracking could be potential symbolism into the liberation of her soul, like you were saying, you know, Obviously, she blows up right after that, but seems like she's coming out of a shell. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's like, you see like it's kind of like bursting forth as it like cracks open, and she's genuinely like happy looking. At least it's just
yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
Of course, off one looks happier, but
right.
Yeah.
Whew.
Holy
What a
shit,
chapter.
man! What a fucking chapter.
Yeah, and combat wise, the core. So, have you guys had the conversation about the real reason why Deku's choreography has gone up?
I haven't even thought about it.
Because Horikoshi doesn't give you anything that you haven't earned, even if you're the main character.
Ooh.
So if you think about it, like there's a lot of like cool choreography paneling tricks that you see in fights with like Endeavor that you don't see with Deku until like way later in the series.
Oh.
And it's like, was he like Horikoshi not able to do that? But then it's like, no, like if you, especially like if you see some of like the crazier spreads and like some of the bigger, it's like, no, he can do crazy art. We know he can do it.
Right.
So why? And it's like, no, they literally weren't good enough for the good, like the best art.
Yeah.
So they didn't get it.
That's a really cool thought, bro.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
So now that like Deku's been training, and like that's the other reason why I like him having Black Whip since January. It's April. So him doing some of these movements isn't as crazy. And when you think about it, like smoke screen, float, all these things, just standing still or how to hit niggas hard.
Right.
Black Whip was the one that actually needed some thought and practice and like real usage too.
Oh yeah, dude. Yeah, it feels really good. And you're right, man. The fucking choreography has been turning the fuck up since that little since the fucking start of Paranormal Liberation Front War, I want to say.
Yeah.
We've been getting like all-star choreography in My Hero Academia.
It was like they spent 3 months with Endeavor. They've been in school for like a year. These kids can actually like fight for real. Yeah. Even though people don't talk enough about how Kaminari can like sort of fly. But whatever. Like because that was definitely a thing that happened.
Yeah. Holy shit.
Shit. Yeah. I think that about does it for My Hero.
Yeah, I think I'm good.
Yep.
Oh, with that, I think we can go ahead and get into the piece de resistance. You know what I'm saying? Chapter 1015 of One Piece. Wa. Chains.
Senor Pink.
Senor Pink. Woo!
I haven't seen him in a
I would have thought
minute.
this was funnier if the fucking stork was like struggling hard as fuck.
Yeah. Yeah, that beak don't look like it's. I don't know how that beak is.
That's a hard-boiled stork. I mean,
yeah.
Right. Hell yeah.
Gotta be. So good.
Yeah, that's great.
Heck yeah.
But this chapter was absolutely fantastic.
Dude, this chapter, oh my god, bro. Starts with Luffy drowning.
Starts with Luffy drowning. You know what I'm saying? Right into the Chopper bit, which Chopper's talking some dumb shit. Like, you should know better.
Yeah, for real.
He's the youngest, though. He's the youngest.
Yeah.
You know, he's a young blood.
Yeah. And this is his first war.
Yeah, I suppose.
Yeah.
I suppose.
And,
there's a lot going on for him.
Chopper might be objectively high tier in his verse, but like when you kick it with the Monster Trio, which I feel like nobody will complain about me saying the Monster Trio after this chapter.
Right.
Like you probably not gonna feel like you're strong anyway, so
yeah, sure. And this is always like, I mean, you could say like Chopper should know better by now, but I mean, it does feel very Chopper for him to doubt himself and just the situation in general whenever the fire turns up. You know what I mean? So it doesn't feel too bad there, but I love and plus you just need Sanji to be the morale, you know, booster, the reinforcement.
Mr.
You know,
Prince.
Sanji comes in with the Itoriu. Zoro.
No way, he really did smack a motherfucker with Zoro, bro. I'm screaming. That was so funny in JD Legends live reaction.
I'm sorry, did you see that the edit somebody did where they had Sanji swinging Zoro at Whitebeard and the Conquerors clash?
Oh, shit.
Fantastic.
I need to see that.
Man.
Someone send that to me. Anyone in the audience, if you want to.
If you want to.
Yes. We get Sanji coming in with the Diablo Jumbo.
God, I love
fucking
whenever
Queen's
he
bitch
does
ass.
this. Whenever he comes in to save someone with Diablo Jumbo, it's like the most
The
hype
music,
shit
you can
ever.
hear it.
Mhm.
The
For real.
trumpets. Come on,
The
man.
beat, all of it.
Yeah.
Hits Queen with the rotisserie strike on his ass.
So this is a new move, right? Yeah, we haven't seen this. This is tight.
I mean, I don't know. I like to think it's specifically related to this instance.
Right.
I don't know, where
Right.
he like spins
Yeah.
Queen's head around.
Yeah.
you know?
Right, just keeps hitting it around and around and around. Yeah,
Yeah.
that was great.
So this is one of those like really like the cool thing about this is kind of like an example of like raw stats versus actually being a good fighter,
Yes.
because and this is a conversation that a lot of people, like when we talk about like what it means to be like the strongest, a lot of Kaido's crew seems to me to be stemming from the I have a lot of brute force,
Right.
Raw
Sure.
stats, yeah.
like
Yeah.
The
like,
zone.
but because like Sanji like kicking him around like this, like you would think he'd be able to like nigga fight back, like
Yeah.
but like he uses him to like one shot Sparrow in the background, and it's like,
Yeah.
all right, Sanji's like seems to be like better than him. It's just
Yeah.
gonna be a matter of he's just gonna have to hit him a lot.
Yeah,
Like,
sure. Yeah. But Sanji, man, I don't know, man. Sanji's hooping right now. I think it's more for because he does block the arrows too.
yeah.
You know what I mean? So I
With
feel
Queen.
like yeah, with Queen, right? Yeah, with
Yeah.
Queen, with Queen, which is just fucking, which is just hilarious. But I feel like there could be some more strategic depth to their fight than just hitting each other really hard until one of them falls. I think that
Mhm.
what we're
This is
seeing right
round
now,
one.
yeah, I think that what we're seeing right now is literally just for the moment of the chaos happening. It's like you have
Mhm.
arrows raining down. Sanji needs to come in and have a triumphant entry or a triumphant showing against Queen right now. So like let's just kill a whole bunch of birds with one stone by creating this situation. But then when it comes down to brass taxes and they actually square up, I'm sure that we could see a bunch of whatever. That's just like kind of like comes with Sanji's fights almost. I feel like you get a little bit more strategic dialogue and like what he wants to do and who he's doing it to in Sanji fights generally. So
Mhm.
Yep.
My thing is more of where I say like I think Sanji's gonna get those big shots, but it's not gonna be like, oh, Sanji's not hurting this man. It's
Mm.
okay.
like he's just gonna be stuck like.
Okay.
Yep.
Because
Yeah,
like
my bad,
the
my
way I
bad.
look at it
I
is like
understand what
speed
you're saying
wise,
now.
like
Yeah.
power level, he's got the like what it takes. It's just like
Yeah.
Queen is like all these dinosaurs are giant like
Yep.
meat slabs that
Yeah.
just like
Well, he's really good at cooking meat.
like so it's like you're gonna be able to like get through their defense every now and then, but you're gonna still have to like really really work. So it's gonna like I expect this to be like a drawn out thing, and that's what's gonna allow us to see like Queen pull out like, oh, like, well, I'll try this gun or I'll try this thing.
Sure.
And
Right.
it's just gonna be like, well, Sanji's able to beat his ass, sure, but
Yeah.
like he's got all these weapons and all this HP to like
Yeah.
figure something out.
What's really interesting to me for Queen when you think about his physiology is it's like you're mechanical in
Mhm.
these areas
Yeah.
that we've seen in your full Zoan animal form. How does this translate to hybrid form? Is it like you could assume he's probably still going to have the vertebrae like segments or whatever of his neck even in hybrid form, but I mean
Mhm.
like does he have different, is it like a transformer where the form you're in like dictates like what kind of cyborg moves you'll be able to use? You know
Sure.
what I mean? Because it's like you'd think that because it's like built in plating that like it shouldn't be able to move around with like the anthropomorphic shape shifting that you kind of do as a Zoan generally. You know what I
Right.
mean? So it's like it makes me like wonder like how that's going to be shown by Oda, I guess.
Mhm.
And so
Hey.
I think what we're kind of confirming is, you know how like when like Logia transformed, their clothes transform with them.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
I think like if you integrate something into a Zoan's body, then it starts being able to like shape and change with them.
Yo,
Right.
I like that.
I was literally going to say the same thing, and it's interesting because in the past it's only been clothes, as you said,
Yeah.
right? Like
Yeah.
when Chopper gets bigger, he's still wearing pants. You know what I mean? And it's like, and Oda has said before that it's just that he doesn't want to draw, say, Chopper busting out of his pants and he's naked, right? Like
Right.
he doesn't want
Yeah.
to draw that, so he doesn't have to. But this is a time where that's crossing over from aesthetics
Yes.
into battle prowess. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Like if Queen has this metal vertebra in his neck in hybrid form, like that means he's more capable in battle. That's totally different than just pants and not pants. You know what I mean?
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
I also want to point out that like Sanji's raid suit is an exoskeleton, and basically we got an endoskeleton here. Like,
nice.
Nice. Going forward a little bit, in terms of like this chopper conversation we were having earlier, right?
Yeah.
In this chapter, I feel like there was like several times where like my breath was taken away, right? I'm just like, this is peak Oda writing in my opinion, right? Where like top of page 8, you know what I mean? Don't cry, Chopper. You know, after all this time we've been together, how many miracles have you seen? When I read that, I was like, oh my god, chills.
I teared up with Chopper.
Yep,
me and Chopper had a tear at the exact same time as I'm looking at the page, and I can't wait to hear Sanji's voice actor say that to him. With whatever OST is going on in the background, whatever other ambiance the anime is going to bring.
I feel like everything's gonna like all the surrounding audio is gonna drop for a second, and it's just gonna you'll just hear him saying that maybe to a low OST in the background.
Low OST. Shit.
Like it's gonna be swords clinking, going crazy, a bunch of noise, and it's all just gonna like die down.
Yes.
Low OST playing. He's like, "Don't cry." What do you think?
And I think it's really cool that we get to see like leader Sanji.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because we know that, like, basically, it's like when they go to Zoe, it's like, Sanji, you're in charge of the group. Boom. And so it's like, okay, we know that Sanji is fully capable of being a leader, and it makes sense. He's obviously intelligent enough to be a leader. But, like, Whole Cake focused more on, like, his cooking side and, like, you know, like, running a kitchen. And it's like, we didn't get to see, but, like, now we're getting to see that applied to a war. Like, that same ability to, like, hey, keep this going together. We're going to maintain this flow of energy. And like see that on display in a serious setting, because we've gotten a lot of goofy Sanji, even like
during this,
like during the raid, we got some goofy Sanji where it's like, man, are you gonna get your
you gonna get your ones? Yeah. I like what you're saying though. That is really cool. I didn't really think about that because in Whole Cake Island, as he's preparing the cake, you see him running that kitchen as like a master lead chef would in a restaurant. You know what I mean? And he can apply that same level of leadership and that same, understanding of management in a stressful setting and apply that to war tactics. That's so tight to think about.
Love that.
Yeah.
Okay, I thought it was funny as hell when he kicks Zoro and he's like, take care of him. He's strong as 10 people when he's healthy. And Zoro wakes up for that, even though he didn't wake up as he was being used as a bludgeon. He fucking 2,000. Get out of here.
Armament is his specialty, bro. Like he sleep hard.
Yeah.
For real.
Oh, yeah. Okay, so Zoro's gonna get patched up. Got Chopper here expediting his return to the fight. Gonna be dope.
And we know that Marco's been fighting King, so it's kind of like they're both going to be kind of injured from having dealt with, and like because like Marco was fighting King and Queen, so like if he's fighting Marco one-on-one for a while, he's he's at a disadvantage. It wouldn't make sense for anything else to be the situation, because I do think Marco goes to the rooftop.
Sure.
Because I think like the pheasant, the tiger. I think we're gonna get the confirmation that Yamato's the tiger.
Shit! There goes Tiger, man.
Yeah, and then the monkey will be Monkey D. Luffy, of course, coming back in, and then Momo is likely to get up there eventually too. So, that's how I see that. So we got like what we need to get all these pieces.
That
in
does
place.
really complete the whole Journey to the West juxtaposition for real. Like if that all happens, that's
tight. And the biggest point for me with what Aniki said is that Zoro is going to be patched up to, a fighting level, but not 100%. Obviously, he still is dealing with the damage of this confrontation. He's just back at a level to where he can continue to fight. And King, you know what I mean, has been getting his ass whooped by Marco this whole time. So that's going to bring them down to like a stamina and damage level, on par with each other, so that scaling wise, things can still feel good. You know what I mean? That's fucking sick. I like that.
Yeah.
And we get, we can kind of skip towards the conversation at the end, because now while we're talking about scaling and hype, Eustace Kid-in-Law versus Big Mom.
Yeah.
Look, I'm a huge Law fan.
Fuck yeah.
I've enjoyed kids' time on screen. If I'm honest, like all like the kids stuff, I've been like, we got hyper aggressive, like another like version of Luffy. Like I'm digging the energy, and I'm like, a spiritual return to Saboti. One of like, my favorite arcs in the entire series.
My favorite arc personally is Saboti. Yeah.
And I'm just thinking about like that scene where you remember like Kid thinks he's finished the pacifista off, and then Law just ends up pow right in the heart.
Yes.
Like we got time for it.
Yeah, dude. Law and Kid teamwork
like against the Yonko.
I'm so hyped for the Law and Kid team up, bro.
Yeah, that's gonna be so drastic, fam.
Fuck
for sure.
Because like already inside of the little skirmish that we've seen, or smaller, skirmish comparatively to probably what's coming, but when they were up on the rooftop and we got the interactions with Law and Kid in regard to them using their devil fruits to force Big Mom off kilter and get her off of the rooftop, that was really cool, like technical application of devil fruits. Like by and large in One Piece, a lot of it is just, here's my attack, here's your attack, and it kind of clashes and we beat each other up, you know what I mean? But there's a lot of other really good storytelling that happens around it, so it's not, that big of a deal most of the time. But like inside of like Kid and Law versus Big Mom, like there was a lot more like technical, like mechanical like shit going on than I'm used to seeing in One Piece. And like now that it's actually going to like be a dedicated confrontation over here with these two together, it's like, yo, what is that going to look like? Because Big Mom isn't someone you can just hit. You know what I mean? It can't be that kind of fight. Like they have to get really creative if they want to beat her up. And like this is like a really creative duo. I'm so excited for it.
You kind of got to flee the room.
Yeah.
And that's the other. So like because Law's not going to be able to like, all right, I'm just not going to use a room because I'm like, people have to leave. So like now there's like this whole amount of like splash damage that is like coming into play here where it's like a lot of the fodder, like even it's like if it's like, oh yeah, like they have a like 10K like person lead, it's like, yeah, it doesn't matter because all 15K of us can't go in this room.
Yeah.
Like, or we die or whatever. So like that's kind of like weird that like it's actually creating a stage where a lot of the small fry actually, along with like the citizens of Wano, are just gonna have to kind of sit and watch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because otherwise
you're gonna get caught in the wake. Yeah. Hulk physics. Wait, can we go back a little bit and talk about Kinemon and Kaido?
We need to talk about the Kinemon shit.
Oh my god, I can't believe Oda did that.
Plunges a fucking sword through Kinemon's chest. Kinemon is out of there.
Yeah.
I'm like sitting here like, yeah, Oda did that.
Yeah.
Oda did that.
Oda really did that. And it was already so drastic last chapter because he fucking bashes him and that the perspective on that panel was so crazy looking, and you're like, well, it's still kind of ambiguous, you know how Oda be. And then but no, he's literally twitching on the ground, not saying any words before fucking this motherfucker stabs him through and through. Like that's so ruthless for One Piece.
Yeah, very, very much so.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
it's a great swan song for Kinemon, right? Just like you get his little flashback right before it happens, and in his last moment, he just wants to, even if just for another second, like ensure Momonosuke's escape and safety.
Yep.
It just shows his devotion and determination as a follower, man.
Yeah.
To the end.
Very end.
It's crazy.
The bitter
and seeing how like his dedication and loyalty made it where it was even hard for him to pretend like he was Momonosuke's father. But like,
great little flashback, definitely.
Yeah, dude, that was very.
I really like that.
Yeah,
Oda knows, man.
And great dialogue from Kaido as it happens.
Yes.
Face your death like a warrior. The problem with defeat is so few can accept it when it arrives.
Ooh,
man, wait.
Yeah.
And like Kaido obviously is a character who like. I feel he strives for defeat in a way.
Yeah.
Like he wants to find somebody who can defeat him straight the fuck up and honorably. But I don't know. I wonder if he'll fold when it actually does come.
Yep. I was thinking the same thing. Yep.
It's like, shut the fuck up,
so
Kaido,
that's something I've seen people bring up online, actually. They were like, Kaido talks all this shit. He wants to be like hard, and then like the second Luffy hits him in the face, he's sitting here like having PTSD episodes thinking about his top 5. And they're like, and I'm like, I don't know if that's a complete contradiction though, because like to me it's like, whoa, hold up.
Yeah.
An ass whooping like that?
I feel like I pulled up the scanlation for the chapter just because I want to compare. I wanted to do a side-by-side comparison of Kaido's dialogue to Kinemon as he walks away. And I feel like what he says is a little bit more disrespectful in the scan, because in the viz he's like, face your death like a warrior. The problem with defeat is so few can accept it when it arrives. The scan says it's not easy, but sometimes you have to accept defeat. Embrace your honorable death like a true samurai. Yeah, it's basically the same thing, but like it just, with the word samurai thrown in there, it's almost like, it's like, why are you, you're not one, you know what I mean, is almost like kind of what he seems to almost be implying. Yeah.
The social class.
Yeah. But that was just I just remembered, I'm like looking at the dialogue on Viz and I was like, what did it say in the scan? So I pulled it up.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, I will say that like that is worth acknowledging though, because Kinemon technically isn't a samurai, like when you look at where they come from.
Right.
Oh.
So like the whole idea of him actually being willing to sit there and just die.
Yeah.
Is like he was a scrapper, but he was a gangster before he was a samurai.
Yeah, and then through his retainership, for, I don't even know if retainership is a word, but through his time as a retainer for Odin, he probably really did feel like a real samurai during that time, because he had a master. They were in an established like territory. They were running things like, legally and whatever, and blah, 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 blah. Everything was cool. And he's coming from humble beginnings, like rags to riches in that way. And now Kaido in the scan dialogue is using words like true samurai and like almost like implying that he's not that, you know what I mean? Like take your death, honorably, like a samurai, aren't you? You know what I mean? Like, and he's like walking away like with that notion, and it's like, just thinking about how he was not a traditional samurai and going into like a faux samurai setting under Odin, and then getting this dialogue and thinking about it all together like that makes it feel like a lot cooler to me now.
Yeah.
And goddamn, this what Momo was saying, to the whole of Onigashima, this shit had me on the edge of my seat, like chills, like, oh man, like,
yes,
you've been waiting for it, you know what I mean? Like, and he just hypes everyone up.
Yes,
Luffy's voice is who he was hearing, the voice of all things.
Yes, last chapter when he's like, what is this? You know what I mean? That was, he was hearing Luffy. Fucking awesome.
And cool that Luffy puts it together to like
speak with his soul.
How can he speak with the voice of all things now?
I don't think it's that
to Momo.
I don't
think it's specifically to Momo, but he knows that Momo can hear it on a very large scale, so he just says it.
Right.
Yeah.
That Momo will hear
I think it's a Conqueror's Haki thing.
It could be a Conqueror's Haki thing too.
Because there's something that I want to because if you remember, the part of the logic behind Luffy being able to adapt to Future Sight was that he was able to empathize with Katakuri, because you get the Rayleigh flashback and he's like, it depends on the kind of person, and it's about like his emotional connections. So in turn, the biggest manifestations, or like the first manifestations we see of his Conqueror's Haki, are like the big explosions of it when it just knocks people out. And you juxtapose that with Kaido suggesting that Zoro has Conqueror's Haki, and how maybe that, like, the idea of manifesting your will in a certain degree, like the manifesting of the three heads is the manifestation of the three swords style itself. Like, it embodies Zoro, so it's like his very will as a swordsman manifested, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I like that.
So, like, in that way, because of, you could argue that Luffy's emotional resonance has now allowed him to like convey what he feels and thinks to people
in the same blast radius as like his Conqueror's Haki waves that knock people out.
Right.
Oh shit, that's really cool, dude. I don't know the way that I feel like I like that the most.
Like you're staring at me, he's still staring at me. So it's like at the end of the day, Luffy's will as a king is still, I'm gonna conquer this territory, you a bitch ass nigga, Kaido.
Yeah.
I'm sleeping on myself because I'm the hardest nigga. I'm gonna come at you, bro. Wait. like that's just the move.
Yeah.
So like
Yeah.
that's what it is, and that's what it's going to reflect in the spirit. So
Yeah.
I think that's kind of like what's happening here.
I really like that, what you said.
Yeah.
I feel like that's a really fucking cool idea. The way that I kind of took it was that, like, because doesn't Luffy know that Momonosuke can also hear the voice of all things?
Yeah.
So he knows that, and we know he knows that. So like the way that I kind of took it was just that Luffy is trying to communicate to someone that he's not out of the fight yet, but he's underwater and can't speak to anyone, and he's not around anyone. But he knows that Momonosuke will hear him if he like just speaks with his soul, because he can just hear the voice of all things. So I think he's just like thinking this really loudly, and Momonosuke is picking up on it because he can because he has that same ability to hear it.
And even if it is like thinking, like how I took it was that kind of what you were hinting at earlier, Eagle, is that like Momo and Luffy can both hear the voice of all things. And my first assumption here was that Luffy has figured out how to speak in the voice of all things, right? Now that could be a Conqueror's Haki thing, that could be how you do it is through Conqueror's Haki. But I definitely was like assuming it was more of a direct voice of all things communication. Not a simple thought, and but I didn't even think of the Conqueror's Haki aspect or whatever. But yeah,
I do think the voice of all things still plays into being able to do it,
right?
But it's the fact that Law's people also could hear it, because if you remember, they're like, how could he be speaking in the water? So I'm like, that to me is like,
so he is speaking verbally. That's right. Okay, so he is actually saying
they're so close that like they can't help but sense it.
Yeah.
But you need the voice of all things to sense it from the range that Momo's picking it up on.
Right.
Sure.
Well, wouldn't they just? I thought maybe they just picked up the transmission on a snail as well. Like
that is what I was another idea I had for that, like for the crew of the submarine or whatever.
It's just that we don't see him holding anything.
Right. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mysterious.
Yeah, I like what Aniki just said about how he's speaking loud enough for the submarine to pick up the vibrations of someone speaking underwater. So they just heard it or whatever. However they detected it, they detected him actually speaking verbally. And then normally no one else would be able to hear because it's so far away and it's underwater and whatever, but Momonosuke can hear the voice of all things, and that voice will reach him because he has that ability. But like it is just his voice, just him speaking, right? And Momonosuke is just hearing his voice speaking because he has that hearing,
Right, saying the words verbally and speaking and voice, like it's none of those things, because it's not audible out of his mouth. He's knocked out, and it's
the
his
voice
mind.
Of his soul.
It's like a thought.
So wait, how do they know that he's speaking?
Because they heard it on the radio that Momo said he's talking.
That is one explanation.
One
that they heard on the radio. They heard what everyone else is hearing. That Momo is saying to everyone, Luffy said X. And they're being like, well, what do you mean Luffy said X? He's underwater. So that's one explanation.
That's good.
Or it could be that Luffy is using the voice of all things or Conqueror's Haki or something like that to convey with his mind his thoughts, and people in the submarine are picking up on that and going like, it's like I hear someone in my head, but he's underwater, so how is he doing this kind of thing? It's one of those two.
I like the first one because I didn't think about that.
Because the second one would imply that they can also hear the voice of all things.
Right.
No, not unless Luffy can do a one-way communication, right? Like use the voice as speaking through the voice of all things can put thoughts into other people's minds who wouldn't normally be able to hear the voice of all things.
Sure. Okay, I see what you're saying.
And then if you can hear the voice of all things, you can hear things that people didn't intend to, say.
And to me, it's like you would get better range, like because like there was even it's a weird thing that happened in like a One Piece filler arc, but she basically had a similar ability to like Momo and like Luffy, and this is way back in like the first 100 episodes of One Piece type.
Sure.
Oh wow.
Where she was like picking up on stuff all across like the island, and if you remember, like Luffy, Zoro, and Sanji had that moment where they were like, "Oh, there's like a beast in the castle," or like they could detect something way off somewhere in the castle that was giant.
Mm-hmm.
And so like we keep having these things of like where people detect things from far off anyway, or like you have people detect something strange up by the head of Zunisha, and how it might actually be the whale tree that they were detecting, and not just like Zunisha's head. Since you were all like Zunisha, you should be able to detect all around you technically.
Sure.
So like you have all these like interesting like moments of long range detection, and it even kind of, depending on how much you care about the side novels, there was a mention of Shanks being on a winter island, and when Ace came to visit him, his Conqueror's Haki combined like with his like devil fruit type actually made it where the winter island stopped snowing the entire time he was on it.
Oh,
wow.
shit. Oh
Yeah.
shit, that's tight.
So it's like because of his spirit, like it just like took over that dominion.
Yeah.
So that very well, and so that's where like even like if you look at things like Birdcage, that could be like if you think about it, that could be that range is like that's like Dofi's dominion as like a king.
Oh,
it's like
sure.
so that's like where he like locks it all down and why he has so much power and like those.
Sure.
So it's like you need to like equal his strings plus his Haki.
Yeah.
And that's why it was so difficult for so many people to actually like get through the Birdcage and stuff like
I
Right.
like that.
Nice.
Fuck yeah.
We got motherfucking Shinobu and Momo falling off the side of Onigashima.
Yeah.
And they're both devil fruit users. So they're gonna need some help.
that. Clouds.
So wait, do we know that smile fruit users can't swim either?
Yeah.
We know that.
Do we know that Momo specifically can't swim though? Because land, sea, or air. And his fruit is based on Kaido. And they mentioned sea for Kaido.
Mhm.
I don't think I don't know, that'd be kind of wild if Kaido's devil fruit broke the rules of devil fruits, but whatever.
True. That would be awkward.
Even if it is a fish one, I still don't know that it can. But I don't know that Momo is proficient enough in his shit. Did he brought Luffy up with him, didn't he?
Yeah,
When
but
they
it was
first met?
yeah, but it was painful and difficult for him to do.
Yeah.
You need like coaching from Luffy to even do it or whatever.
Yeah.
Looking
Which
at this
we know-
again, I totally forgot that Shinobu even had a devil fruit or whatever, the Juku no Mi. So like I feel like she intentionally did this. You know? Like they're cornered by Kaido. She uses her ripe fruit, which allows the user to mature and decay inanimate objects. It's as if she tried to make the cliff disintegrate so they'd fall away from him.
That's what she did, yeah.
Yeah. I guess when I first read it, I just thought like something randomly happened and like they're falling now. But like if she did it intentionally, I'm guessing that she's a plan. You know what I mean? They're not just gonna fall in the ocean and die.
And are they falling in the same like
I mean,
area of the ocean that Luffy fell into? Because
they're over the mainland now.
Oh, that's true. That's true.
There's also the fact that she could be hoping Momo can make some fire clouds.
Sure.
Oh yeah, Momonosuke can totally fly.
Yeah, but
he's
like,
not good.
Like Nick and I were saying, he was struggling trying to get Luffy up out of the pit they were in.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
But he can at least save from like a
Shinobu is a
fatal
little
fall.
bigger.
Oh, true. He can at least cushion the fall enough and get
that
up
he's
to
been training because he was training his swordsmanship, so
Right.
maybe he's trained a bit with the clouds.
Right. And we might get a flashback to his training,
Probably. But
with the
his
dragon
devil
river.
fruit is also a really traumatizing thing for him. So he might not even be able to train up until Kaido's beaten. Really.
Ooh.
Sure. Yeah.
Let's talk about the Klimattack.
Let's
Yes!
talk
Because
about
I'm looking
Zeus
at
tagged in his bitch.
I'm looking at the panel and I'm just like, oh boy.
Okay.
It's Zeus.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Zeus tacked. How is that?
Yeah, let's
Okay.
talk about how. Yeah.
My theory is, how like Zeus is made with Big Mom's soul.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I think that to a certain degree, because everybody has Haki, and like that's a manifestation of your will, it's kind of like your soul too, to a certain degree.
Mhm.
And so the way I look at it is, like, over time, you could argue that because of the affection, actual care that Nami was putting into him, there was like a small bit of her actual will infused into like the black balls and stuff that she was actually like feeding him.
Yeah.
And so like her will was slowly being infused into Zeus too, especially as he spent time into the Klimattack.
And then it just chose the one that cares about Zeus more.
Right. Once like Big Mom went to like absorb him all, like he went like that small shred of it, like pulled him back in, and like that's what I got for that.
Sure.
That's tight. That's pretty much the idea I had, except outside of the hockey thing. I thought that just because Nami shot the black balls out of her shit as it went into Zeus's mouth as it was eaten by Hera, that like that just like combination of things somehow was the link or the tether necessary for Zeus's soul to travel back to the Klimattack. But tying it into hockey makes it make a lot more sense because that's pretty much all I had for that. Yeah.
Yeah,
You know,
I
think
didn't
it's
really have
something
much.
that needs to be touched on a little more.
Yeah.
Yes. Yep.
Oh, yeah,
I didn't have
we're
much
getting
explanation. I was
exposition
just
for
like, this is tight. This is
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah,
I'm
we
ready for
have
it. But I was like, oh, I'll wait until later to know why.
Right, for sure.
And then we got the hype little last panel, man. Yamato versus Kaido until Luffy gets back.
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
So ready.
Yeah.
Devil fruit. I need to see Yamato's devil fruit. So
Yeah.
I
ready.
need to
Oh
see
my God.
that saber-toothed tiger come out. Oh no, that's fucking who's who. What the
Yeah.
fuck?
Yeah, it's gonna be the white tiger, like Aniki
The
said.
white tiger, yeah.
Yep.
So a
Yep.
mythical version.
Yep, mythical zone.
More than likely, yeah.
I'm ready.
Elite
I'm so fucking ready. And I hope it's
Super
like,
ready.
I hope it's like on the level, you know, of at least until Luffy gets back. I hope it's like a really like drag out. Like I want to see everything Yamato can do.
Mhm.
Yeah, I
You know what I
want
mean?
to
I
see
want us
them
to-
like go through the forms, like
Yeah.
Yeah.
fighting the human form for a bit.
Yep.
Both of you go beast.
Yep. Come back down
Then-
to hybrid. Finish it
Yeah.
off. Yeah. I feel like Oda will off screen a lot of it and just like leave it
Yeah.
up to the anime to kind of like fill in those gaps. Kind of like
I just feel like
seamlessly.
there's a classic painting in like where there's like the dragon curled up, but then you can
Yes.
see like the tiger.
Yes.
And I feel like there's like no way that Oda doesn't recreate that.
Yeah, I love that. I'd
Oh,
love to
it'll
see that.
yeah, that'll for sure probably be something that happens because
if
even
not, we'll get a
the
color spread for it.
even the initial like entrance panel to the sea around Wano was like super similar to that super iconic Japanese painting of like the waves hitting the large rock spires and
Yeah.
shit. Like
Mhm.
Yeah.
We're getting all kinds of imagery like that. So yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah,
I
I
hope we
mean-
fucking see that in one form or
Wano
another.
has been one giant like love letter to just Japanese history and
Yeah.
Japan
Exactly.
in general.
Yep.
Like Oda's in his bag with this shit.
For real.
Mhm.
For really real.
What a chapter.
But I think that about does it.
Yeah,
Mhm.
I'm good.
All right. Well, that is it for One Piece, and that is it for this episode of the Project Manga Podcast. Thank you all so much for watching. If you did, slap a like on the fucking video, subscribe to the channel, get more content every week. Comment on the video, let us know what you thought. If we fucked up, let us know. Other than that, make sure you check that description box down below, as always, where you can find links to all of our individual social media accounts, such as Twitter, online communities like Discord, places where you would normally listen to podcasts. You'll find us everywhere. And also ways you can support the podcast through our online shop or Patreon. And thank you again, Aniki, so much for joining us, man. It's so fucking awesome whenever we get to have a guest on this show. And you know, we've done things with you in the past, and you're always a good ass person to talk to. It's good conversations with you, man. So
Hell yeah.
thanks again.
Appreciate the invite. Appreciate the chance to be here, man. For real.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yes. And with that said, this will be another stupendous episode of the Project Manga Podcast. Wrapping up, I'm your host, Eagle.
Knox.
Nickums.
Anarchy.
Sarabada.